seconds. 3 seconds. And look what we've done. We have modestly named ourselves Homo sapiens, meaning wise man. But is man really so wise? Smart, yes, and it's good to be smart, but not too smart for your own good. Yes, we have split the atom. Yes, we build clever machines that navigate the universe in search of new homes, but at the same time, those atoms we split created nuclear warfare. In our quest to explore the galaxy, rejects and neglects the home that we have here now, so no, that cannot be wisdom. Wisdom is different. While intelligence speaks, wisdom listens, and we willingly covered our ears to Mother Nature's screams and closed our eyes to all of her help-wanted signs. Wisdom knows that every action has an equal and opposite reaction, so if we were wise, we would not be shocked when we see storms that are stronger than ever before, or more drought, hurricanes, and wildfire than ever before, because there's more pollution than ever before, more carbon, more trees cut down than ever before. At a record pace, we have increased the extinction of animals by 1,000 times the normal rate. What a feat. In the next 10 to 100 years, every beloved animal character in every children's book is predicted to go extinct. Lions gone, rhinos gone, tiger, gorilla, elephant, polar bear gone. In 3 seconds. Species that have been here longer than us will be gone because of us. In this 3 seconds. In an existence shorter than a Vine video, we turn the circle of life into our own personal conveyor belt. Somebody, anybody help. We were given so much, the only planet in this solar system with life. I mean, we are 1 in a million. No, actually, scientifically, we are 1 in a billion, trillion. That's a 1 followed by 33 zeros. And I don't want to get too spiritual, but how are we not a miracle? We are perfectly positioned to the sun so we don't burn, but not too distant so we don't turn to ice. Goldilocks said it best, we are just right. This paradise where we are given medicine from trees, not coincidentally, but because like the song says, we are family. Literally, everything, every species is connected genetically, from the sunflower to the sunfish. And this is what we must recognize before it's too late, because the real crisis is not global warming, environmental destruction, or animal agriculture. It is us. These problems are symptoms of us, byproducts of us. Our inner reflection, loss of connection has created this misdirection. We have forgotten that everything contributes to the perfection of Mother Nature. Corporations keep us unaware and disconnected, but they have underestimated our strength. Contrary to popular belief, millions are waking up out of their sleep, seeing our home being taken right up under our feet. We cannot allow our history to be written by the wicked, greedy, and loony. It is our duty to protect Mother Nature from those who refuse to see her beauty. Call me crazy, but I believe we should have the right to eat food that's safe, with ingredients we can pronounce. Drink water that is clean, marvel at trees, breathe air free of toxins. These are natural rights, not things that can be bargained for in Congress. See, they want you to feel powerless, but it has been said that something as small as the flutter of a butterfly's wing can cause a typhoon halfway around the world. But when enough people come together, we too will make waves and wash the world into a new era filled with love and connection, freedom for all without oppression. But it is up to you, yes, you watching this behind this screen, to make the effort, because time is of the essence, and only together can we make it to the 4th second. We can no longer rely on those who have polluted our air, water, and sea for a solution. There will be no Iron Man coming with a super technological fix to save the world. In fact, we cannot save the world, but we can recreate the world. We must do something about our trees. Trees are so important to this planet. Destroying them is causing more than 7 billion tons of greenhouse gas emissions each year. If we don't stop the destruction of the world's forests, we will not be able to solve climate change, period. For the past year, I've been supporting Stanford Trees, a platform that puts the power of change back into the hands of the people. They allow you to take responsibility for your carbon footprint and directly protect the threatened forests, forest communities, and wildlife of the world. If millions of us support Stanford Trees right now, we could actually do something about climate change and environmental destruction. Only through the collective actions of us all will we have a future full of forests that are full of life, and a planet that is full of harmony. Please join me and go to stanfordtrees.org to save a forest and to save our future.
Boleh, tu aku mau buat siapa mau ya mau yeah, almost sure. Even if I'm not like just as good as I have. Oh my.
Femi, we cannot hear you. I cannot hear you. I cannot hear you, Femi.
Hello, sir. Hello, everyone.
Hello, can you hear me now, sir?
Better.
Good day, everybody.
Better.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you are across the face of the earth. SDSN Nigeria, SDSN Youth Nigeria, and the Center for Sustainable Development, University of Ibadan, are all jointly co-hosting this program that has been tagged Climate Actors Accelerators Program, and it's held in commemoration of the World Environment Day. We would have held this program specifically on the 5th of June, because that's the World Environment Day, but then it falls on one of the rest days in Nigeria. So we would also have held it on Monday, but due to logistics, we felt today is much better. So kindly bear with us. We would like to kick its ground running. And to begin with, we would like to have the network chair of SDSN Nigeria in person of Professor Liveable will deliver the welcome address. We'll do a little bit more of his profile much later, but then let's have a welcome address from him. Professor Popola, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Femi. You're not following the agenda any longer. I guess there are some items before the introductory remark. Yeah.
The agenda in front of me reads that the welcome address is the first thing we have.
Okay. Okay, so very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Good. So I'd like to humbly welcome all of you to this 2022 edition of the Climate Actors Accelerator program. This is an event specifically designed for young innovators and change makers who are passionate about preferring solutions to our global climate crisis. We expect that they are interested in creating a livable environment towards a net zero future. We all know the impact of fossil fuel on our planet, and we believe that young ones can make all the difference in ensure that we have a net zero future. If there is any movement in Nigeria, what we actually need is that the youth should take action towards safeguarding our planet. Nature and biodiversity are already negatively affected. Climate change is a big issue. Biodiversity loss, waste and pollution, all of these are creating serious challenges for our environment, not only in Nigeria, but the world over. We expect that youth will come up with various transformative solutions initiatives, which will help to mitigate the ripple effects of all of these negative impacts on our livelihoods. The whole world is in multiple crises arising from conflicts, many of which have their roots in adverse climatic scenarios. These have been compounded by COVID-19 pandemic, and now we have the conflict in the Donbass, Ukraine and Russia, and this is affecting the whole world. For us to steer out of these multiple crises, we will require collective actions, and the youth have been rightly identified as key players. Considering their population and their boisterousness, they are very active, they are IT savvy, and we believe they can make some difference in resolving some of these challenges. The goal of this program is to develop a network of young talents that would pioneer transformative solutions to restore and protect our planet and ecosystem. We believe these solutions would address the critical issues of climate mitigation and adaptation, and they will also promote our natural and cultural heritage. They will help in biodiversity conservation. They will help in waste and pollution management. And they will also help in responsible production and consumption, such that our environment and human settlements can be resilient and sustainable. The Climate Actors Accelerator program is scheduled to hold in 4 phases for 12 good weeks. Today's conference is just the phase 1 of the Accelerator program. And this is in commemoration of the World Environment Day, like Femi has rightly mentioned. Phase 2 is an advanced training and innovation process with various experts from across the globe facilitating. Phase 3 of the program is community development project, while phase 4 has to do with product launching. Participants who attend fully will be issued certificates at the end of this event. I sincerely want to appreciate the organizers of this event, in particular, the SDSN Nigeria youth, and in particular also the coordinator, Emmanuel Olowoyo, for coming up with this innovative program, which I believe will change the narrative towards the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals. I also want to thank all our facilitators for taking time out of their very busy schedules to participate in this conference. We don't take this for granted. I am confident that this event is going to be an impactful and life-transforming one for every participant. It is therefore with great pleasure that I welcome you all. I plead that you try to enjoy every part of this program. Very good morning and all the very best all through the conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you indeed, Sir Prof. We really appreciate the very insightful welcome, especially the aspect that captured what the program entails, the 4 phases. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much once again for availing us, especially the very precious time. So very quickly, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, and that's the first brief or short lecture to be delivered by the Director of the Center for Sustainable Development, University of Ibadan, which serves also as the host of the Secretariat of Sustainable Development Solutions Network Nigeria. I'm talking about no less a person than Professor Sakaoladunni Jimoh. He is also a professor at the Department of Social and Environmental Forestry, Faculty of Renewable Natural Resources, University of Ibadan. We would like to invite on board now Professor Sakaoladunni Jimoh to give us the opening lecture, which would last for 15 minutes. Prof, over to you, sir. I'm not sure Prof is online right now. Maybe there's a little bit of a network challenge that is experiencing. So what I would just want us to do is to have a short video of all the facilitators for the first session. So we have 3 sessions. I forgot to mention that we have this program phased into 3 sessions. Plenary session is to be delivered by Professor Labode Pupola that just addressed us. The second will be by Mr. Doyin, and the third will be by Mr. Oluwafemi Abioye. So we'll have a short video that just rightly captures what the profile of this persons are. So let's have that video play in a short while from now. Thank you.
Yeah, Femi, what's going on?
So we, I'm not sure we have Professor Jimoh, right, with us right now.
Yes, I just spoke with him. I think he's experiencing some signal challenges.
Okay, we guessed as much. And so in order not to allow that time to be wasted, we are doing a short video that profiles the first 3 facilitators, yourself and the other 2 persons. So the video is being prepared. It should be, we should display in the next 1 minute. It's been put up right now. It should display the next 1 minute.
Professor Labode Popola is a professor of forest economics and was the head of department Forest Resources Management and Dean Postgraduate School, University of Ibadan. Before he was appointed Director, Center for Sustainable Development of the University of Ibadan. He is a member of many learned and professional associations, including Association of Research Managers UK, African Sustainable Development Network, United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network, International Society of Tropical Foresters, Commonwealth Forestry Association, African Network for Agroforestry Education, Agroforestry Research Network for Africa, Rural Development Forestry Network, African Forest Research Network, African Forest Forum, West African Research and Innovation Management Association, and Life Member and Fellow, Forestry Association of Nigeria. Professor Popola has many scholastic publications in local and international journals with over 150 publications. He has supervised several thesis dissertations. He has also been given professional appointments in various organizations and attended various local and international fellowships, international scientific courses, conferences, and workshops. He has received several awards, honors, and distinctions, and has served on several boards and committees. He is currently a member, Academic Steering Committee, International Advisory Board of the Global Masters in Development Practice Program, and the co-director, Nigeria Sustainable Development Solutions Network, an affiliate of the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, among others. His interests and hobbies include farming, gardening, traveling, professional associations, photography, debate and current thinking in a variety of fields, music, nature walks, meditation, counseling, teamwork, and mentoring. He is happily married and blessed with children. Doyin is an accomplished energy, carbon, climate change, sustainability, and ESG professional with over 15 years of blended and progressive experience. He has an excellent knowledge across the spectrum of energy, utilities, power, carbon, sustainability, green economy, infrastructure, and environment sectors and current developments. Over the last decade, he has delivered extremely well on a range of policy, regulatory, consultancy, strategic, business development, management, and advisory remits, working with various clients in the public, private sectors, and third sectors across multi-geographical regions. Currently, he is the head of sustainability at the University of Wolverhampton Estates and Facilities Directorate and a managing consultant at Energies UK. He is a strong sustainability advocate and a clean energy enthusiast. Oluwafemi Abioye is a founder, Tamela Food and Tea, winner of the Africa Green Business Award 2022. Oluwafemi Abioye is a graduate of Computer Science and Mathematics from the Federal University of Technology, Minna, MBA from Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, and Advanced Diploma in Project Management from the University of Lagos. He is the GMD CEO of AgriMedia Group and Current Data International Services Limited, a senior member of Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineering, with active participation in the organization's various general meetings in the USA from 2014 till date. He has over 13 years banking experience with outstanding performance, managing various critical roles and services, such as head ATM and power management and head data center management units, amongst others. Oluwafemi Abioye pioneered the introduction of renewable energy into Sterling Bank in 2012 with the implementation of using hybrid renewable energy for selected branches. He resigned his appointment from Sterling Bank plc in January 2017 to follow his passion, agribusiness and energy management, with active participation in renewable energy. Oluwafemi is the founder Tamela Food and Tea, an indigenous tea production company using organically raised health beneficial plants and herbs local to our society. The factory runs solely on renewable energy with near zero carbon emission. Tamela Food and Tea is a member of the AgriMedia Group, an agri-tech agribusiness organization with strong footprints in crop production, agribusiness value chains, trainings, youth and women empowerment. He co-founded the AgriMedia Agribusiness Academy, an online platform for free and commercial agribusiness trainings. The group consists of people from all walks of life. Oluwafemi is very passionate about sustainability and its application to agribusiness, agriculture, and energy in order to achieve bioenergy, green building, and integrated agricultural system, amongst others. Oluwafemi is a motivational speaker and coach, a member of Ibadan Dining Club. He is the president of AgriMedia Farmers Cooperative and Igongon Agro Park.
So thank you everyone for paying attention. So that's the profile of our facilitators for the first session. So Professor Jimoh will be coming on board now. However, he had a challenge joining by the Zoom link due to network. So he's going to be calling by phone, and we'll try to see how we can make the most of the next 15 minutes. So his call is coming in right away. You're on, sir. Can we hear him? Sorry, can we hear Professor Jimoh?
No.
Oh,
no, we can't.
Unfortunately.
I'm very delighted to be part of this memorable system.
Can you hear him now, please?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, a bit.
2022. Let me first apologize for not being able to join you online. The internet service at my end is extremely poor, so I was not able to join. This pardon me for my inability to join you online. Let me congratulate you the organizers of this event. It's an initiative that is commendable, that is addressing one of the serious challenges of our time, climate change. As highlighted by Professor Prof, climate change affects virtually everything, everywhere in the world. Talk of food security, talk of security, talk of health. Maybe climate change affects everything. So any action that is being taken to ameliorate or to address this issue of climate change must be commended. On that basis, I commend you for this brilliant initiative. I would concentrate on three key issues that contribute to climate change and to carbon removal, where I think young people of the world have a role to play. The first one is deforestation. Nigeria is one of the topmost countries in the world where we have the highest rates of deforestation. Deforestation comes as a result of a number of factors. One, farming. Two, urban development. Three, housing. Four, infrastructure development, among others. I will take farming as a case study. It is unfortunate that the method of farming that we are forced to adopt today is highly unsustainable, climate unfriendly, and environmentally toxic. We have gotten to a situation whereby we can no longer clear our farm manually. We can no longer do our work manually. We can no longer control our pests. Biologically, we use pesticides. Methods of farming are very destructive. Where did you put that? Put over remove every plant, every tree. He doesn't know which one is useful to the farmer. He doesn't know which one is contributing to carbon sequestration. He doesn't know what contributing to soil amelioration. And as a result of this, when you farm 1, 2, 3 years, that soil becomes permanently damaged. In addition, the plants that will help to develop the soil are destroyed. The microorganisms that will contribute to the rejuvenation of the soil, when we destroy them, this is pathetic. The challenge to the youth, I know that it's extremely difficult to find who will do your work for you manually now. But please find innovative ways of clearing land such that it has limited impact on both the vegetation and soil. Because when you could try things, it leads to a chain effect. Removing the vegetation leads to erosion. Erosion leads to cessation of river water and use. That leads to flooding. And it goes on. Okay, so we need innovative way of clearing land such that we are able to conserve and preserve the environment for longer use. the use of agrochemicals nowadays, the moment is more white, and the beautiful thing, the first thing that we are trying to do is to apply habitat so that you keep all the out, all the weeds. And I think what we are going to have both the economic and the political role to play in that ecosystem. Some plant materials that you are selling are vegetable. Some of them are medicinal plants. Some of them are nitrogen fixers to the soil. Some of them are pest emitters of other plants, including your crop. So the moment you spray them with additives, you spray everything, you are very difficult environment. Then the use of pesticides also. Just about, but they are part of the ecosystem. Using both testing and very destructive agrochemical is not environmentally sustainable. So, I urge you what we need to start thinking about. How do we develop organic habitats? How do we develop organic pesticides that are less destructive to the environment? I'm also a small farmer. When I found myself in this dilemma, I decided I was not going to do inorganic pesticide. And I looked around as a forester. I know that me, as a director, has that stage and has removed. So I collected the wood, not simply so people water for 3 days. And I need to spray my milk. The animals have been controlled. So these are some of the innovative things I want to put to think about our food production system, and they could be sustained. And they could help to ameliorate climate change. Another solution to deforestation problem. Please make it a point of duty on your bed everywhere. Plant a tree. If you buy a pot of land and you have not started using it, plant trees there. Even if it's a centimeter pencil, it has dual advantage. The tree that you have planted there, when you come back here in 10 years and want to use your land, the tree you fell and take money. But why you stay there on your land, it is contributing to carbon sequestration. It is also helping to prepare your land. So, my dear youth, let us imbibe this philosophy and preach it to the world and practice it so that we will be giving examples. Let me go to another sort of carbon emitter, which is burning of fossil fuel. This is a very serious damage, especially in Nigeria. Carbon emission from automobile, from power generator, from industrial machines. Virtually every household in Nigeria now has a generator using either diesel or fuels. Running this fossil fuel emits a lot of carbon dioxide. find innovative ways of making them exactly good, or we stop or minimize their use. How do we do this? By shared simple idea. Let us to renewable energy. We are blessed. There is sunlight almost 8 hours every day in Nigeria and almost every other. You can tap in solar energy. This is already coming from Nigeria. We should promote it more and make it affordable to the poor, so that like we buy our normal rechargeable lamp or rechargeable fan, you could buy small solar battery, pass it on the house and harvest the energy and put our green energy. This will reduce the emission of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. We have low internal China energy sensitivity. You can now see the amount of energy that is coming from moving type is enormous. Can either then and convert them to green energy, which will help to safeguard our world. We also have wind energy, particularly in the northern part of the country. Wind is a challenge, but we can turn it to an opportunity by installing windmills. Not windmills are upon the direction of the wind. And as we get to growing generating energy as the other thing, and what households to do to generate enough energy that we use, or to generate enough to even sell. So these are ways that we start thinking of in the next years to come. This is the generation that we do. We count on you and we pray and we hope that you will be able to rise up in the challenge. Okay, so lastly, we need of plastic material. This has become a serious environmental challenge, pollution of water bodies, leaching of the environment. It is gradually coming up that these materials are being developed as cycles and used. This five innovative ways of repackaging these plastic materials and using them as delivery. But on the long run, we should gradually replace them down to good plastic materials made up of either paper or wood materials, that can be environmentally best friendly. So in order not to take too much of your time, I would stop here. I'll talk about very important habits of carbon emission which contributes to global warming and climate change. I talked about deforestation. I talked about what causes deforestation, including farming, including urban and industrial development, including housing, including infrastructure development. We must revive green growth. When we build our house, let's plant materials. Let's plant green materials around the house. Instead of computerizing everywhere, this space for a little bit. There's no way that we put it in a developing house, but our housing should be climate change compatible. Our farming activities must be climate smart. We must find a way of adopting organic pesticides and herbicides, which are more environmentally friendly. And we must find a way of substituting fossil fuel energy with renewable energy. Thank you very much. I wish you a successful conference.
Thank you so much, Prof. We are very grateful, sir. Thank you for making our time to join us, sir. We are grateful, sir. So thank you, everyone. We've just finished listening to Professor Oladunni Saka-Jimoh, who could not join us via this link, but was able to join via a phone call. I guess we've been able to make some mental notes of some of the things he made mention, but good enough, this program is being recorded, so we can refer to it as we proceed. So we'd like to move on to the next session, and that's to be anchored by Professor Labode Popola. But just before he comes on board, I would like to say that please questions can be typed in the chat box, because there's also a session for question and answer at the when the first three speakers are done, starting with Professor Labode Popola. Video is the chair or the director of the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network, Nigeria. He is also the immediate past vice chancellor of Osun State University in Osogbo, among many other things. I don't want to waste too much of our time. Let's just go over to you, sir, Professor Labode Popola, and he will be addressing us on. So over to you, sir, Professor Labode Popola.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Oh, great,
Yes,
great. Well, I will just be coming on the heels of the very, very rich presentation by Professor Jimoh, which unfortunately we couldn't pick completely because of the poor signals. But like Femi rightly said, this is going to be made available. The slides, I guess, should be made available. And of course, this program is also being recorded. So I'll be following up on that, and we'll be talking about green economy. Green economy is just another intervention towards sustainable development. From time to time, we give these things some names to just make them appear colorful and all of that. But in terms of content, they are not so different from things we have done in the past and things we'll continue to do in the years to come. So the concept of green economy, and I'm sure many of you will know this, originated from a report of a leading group of environmental economists. And it's defined as a kind of concept which will result in improved human well-being and societal equity. Essentially, it's expected to significantly reduce environmental risk and global scarcities. So again, not so different from sustainable development. Yeah. Now, people tend to make a mistake between green economy and green growth. Okay, but green economy, of course, represents growth in income and employment, and it's also driven by public and private investment. This is one unique area of the green economy. It has to be driven both by public and private investment. They tend to reduce carbon emission and pollution, they enhance energy and resource efficiency, and they prevent the loss of biodiversity and ecosystem services. But the key issue here is that it has to be driven both by the public and the private investment. So like I said, there's a confusion between green economy and green growth. Green growth, of course, is based on ecological restructuring of existing processing. And this helps. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Sorry, sir.
Great,
Please,
great,
could
great,
you help
great.
us enlarge the screen so that we'll see the presentation, sir?
Yes, I did. I did just that. So I don't know what's going on there. I did that. The screen is enlarged. Can you see it?
It seems the screen is frozen. So.
Okay, can we do something? Can Emmanuel do the sharing from his end? Can you share the screen from your end, Emmanuel? So I can just close it from here.
Yes, that's fine.
Huh? Yeah, because I enlarged it. So I don't know what's going on. So can I close the screen from here?
Yes, you can, sir.
Okay, please. Okay. So you can share from your end, please. Emmanuel? Hello, Emmanuel.
You can continue your presentation while we do that, sir.
Can I continue?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then. Yeah, so can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
We can hear you. We can hear you very well, sir.
Yes, I was saying that people tend to confuse the green economy with green growth. And in the case of green growth, we're talking of an economic growth strategy, which is based on ecological restructuring of existing economic processes and creating jobs and income, and also generating opportunities in green sectors of the economy. At the same time, it tends to minimize costly environmental degradation. It helps to minimize adverse climate change and also inefficient use of natural resources. Green growth does not replace sustainable development, and it's important for us to know this. It does not replace sustainable development. It is a means to achieving sustainable development. There are a lot of similarities between green growth, green economy, and sustainable development. But green growth, green economy are means of achieving sustainable development. It provides policy agenda, which helps to achieve measurable progress at the interface of the economy and the environment. So in other words, the economy and the environment have an interface which is facilitated efficiently by green growth. It also promotes cost-effective and resource-efficient way of guiding sustainable production and consumption choices. Indeed, it puts emphasis on technology and innovation. And I'm happy that part of what we're doing here with the youth is to build on technology and innovation, take advantage of technology and innovations that exist. So I consider this to be very important in the context of the rapid advances in technology that we're having. These days, with just a push of the button, so much can be done, and green growth can take advantage of this. Now, in the case of green economy, in 2012, the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development, which is called the Rio Plus 20, and which took place in Rio de Janeiro, had the aim of securing renewed political commitment to sustainable development. It also had the need for assessing progress and remaining gaps in the implementation of sustainable development, and also tackling new and emerging challenges. So constructing a green economy in the context of sustainable development and poverty eradication was one of the conference's two central themes. So it's not really new. It's over 10 years that the issue of green economy actually became a key subject in the discourse for sustainable development. Now, green economy encompasses labor. It includes capital issues, land and natural resources, as well as economic processes such as production, issues of trade, issues of distribution, and the consumption of goods and services. And it requires major changes in agriculture and the provision of food and raw materials. It talks about mobility and transport systems. It talks about public utility systems. It touches on commerce, touches on business, and touches on industry. Issues of housing and urban development, education, science and innovation systems, and financial systems are all captured in green economy. Now, its attainment requires fundamental shifts, and this is something I want us to place some emphasis on. Fundamental shifts in policy frameworks. It requires fundamental shift in support system and how natural resources and human well-beings are valued. Again, these are very well taken care of in the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. In the green economy, the environment is seen as a determining factor of economic production. It's also seen as an important factor in value, an important factor in stability and long-term prosperity, and what might be termed the enabler of economic growth and human well-being. In other words, green economy is an enabler. If we practice it the way it should be practiced, it can enable economic growth and also human well-being. The green economy promotes equitable growth and protects the poor who are less able to shield themselves from environmental degradation and risk. We talk about carbon emission. Carbon emission is not caused by the poor, but they are the risk of carbon emission. But with green economy, the poor are protected from the risk of environmental degradation. Now, what are the challenges and implications of green economy in our own part of the world? Now, global premature death by 2050 for selected number of environmental risk indicators have actually been ascertained. It's been stated that about 3.5 million deaths will result from particulate matter. About 1.8 million deaths will occur from indoor air pollution, and this is happening in many of our localities in Nigeria. Ozone layer will cause about 0.7 million deaths. Unsafe water supply and sanitation will cause about 0.5 million deaths, whereas malaria will also cause about 0.4 million deaths. So malaria that used to be looked at as a serious issue is actually not going to cause more death as these other environmental issues. Now, global terrestrial biodiversity is also estimated to decline by an additional 10%, and there will be 50% increase in global greenhouse gases emission by 2050, and that would be responsible for an increase in global mean temperature of between 3 to 6 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. And the IPCC also warned that reduction in crop yield could be as much as 50% by the year 2020. This warning was given a long time ago. Now it's being worsened by the crisis in the Donbass. And of course, this will decrease in net revenues by as much as 90% by the year 2100. Some of the observed challenges in transiting to a green economy include scientific knowledge gap, and this is very serious in our part of the world, low investment in research, There is the overbearing dependence on natural resource export and importation. Most countries in sub-Saharan Africa, are exporters of natural resources. We do not process our natural resources. And this is a challenge to green economy. Of course, poverty is there. There is also the force of ignorance and corruption. We keep on talking about this. The development finance gap. Yesterday, we held a meeting to discuss the Sustainable Development Report for year 2022, and the issue of development finance came up. It's expected that developed countries should support developing countries, but this is just not happening. The level of support is so low compared to what was agreed. Even in just the last concluded Glasgow meeting, there was so much promise, but this is not coming up. Unfortunately, the world is spending so much on war. The NATO and their allies are spending so much on the crisis between Ukraine and Russia. These are funds that can actually support development. Okay, so these have been worsened by the general backwardness in education and pervasive weak governance and weak governance structures and institutions. So these are challenges that will have to be dealt with if we have to meet the promise of green economy. Now, what are the prospects? When we talk about the challenges, it's also important that we talk about the prospects. Now, green economy may offer considerable opportunities for mobilizing resources towards a low emission, climate resilient development pathway. The pathway to a green economy will require the mobilization of new financial resources from public and private sources. I keep on emphasizing this. Finance is very important if we have to address the issue of green economy. And I'm going to give examples of some countries where these have worked, and you find out that finances are actually key in ensuring that we can attain green economy. There are global examples of how the concept of green economy has successfully balanced environmental sustainability and improved the livelihoods through its three pillars of low carbon development, resource efficiency, and socially inclusive growth. The first example is the Republic of Korea. It adopted a national strategy and a 5-year plan that lasted between 2009 and 2013. And it allocated 2% of its GDP to investment in several green sectors. That changed the environment of the Republic of Korea positively. The government also launched the Global Green Growth Institute, which aims to help countries, especially in developing countries, develop their own green growth strategies. We also have Mexico City. That city is known for its crippling congestion, particularly in the area of transportation. And they introduced what was called the Bus Rapid Transit, a sophisticated bus system that uses dedicated lane on city streets. The good thing here is that I think Lagos State tried it under the regime of Governor Babatunde Raji Fashola, and it also eased transportation. You're able to move many people at the same time using less fossil fuel. This is something that has worked in Mexico. It has worked relatively in Lagos, and this can also be copied by other cities that are congested. We also have China, which invests more than any other country in green economy. Their total wind capacity grew by 64% as far back as 12 years ago, and it's even better now. Namibia in Africa is managing its natural resources to generate economic, social, and environmental benefits. And how is this done? Local communities across that countries are granted the right to use and capitalize on the benefits of using their wildlife and other natural resources within the boundaries of their communal conservancies. In other words, there is less interference of government in the use of natural resources. It's a local approach to managing their resources with government watching over them in ensuring that things are properly done. But the benefits accrue more to the local communities than rent seekers who come in as contractors like we have in other parts of Africa. So the concept of green economy is not rocket science. It guarantees equitable distribution of wealth. It's about economic equity and fairness. It's about intergenerational equity. It's about precautionary approach to development. In other words, every development activity, there are some precautions. There are environmental impact assessment. There are social impact assessment. There are economic impact assessment. There is also the right to develop at your own pace. Green economy allows that. Internalization of externalities. So in other words, when there are going to be externalities, negative impact, we make sure that we internalize these externalities. Green economy allows that. You don't create pollution in your own locality and extend it to other communities. It's important, and green economy makes this possible to internalize externalities. Now, international cooperation is very important. No country can stand alone in our current globe. Every country must work with other countries. And the SDG Goal 17 talks about this. International cooperation, international partnership, partnership within countries, partnership within geopolitical zones, partnership between different parts of the world. And of course, there's also the issue of international liability. This has been coming up. People have been talking about it. The Paris Agreement talks about it, that there are international liabilities to be taken care of. Until Donald Trump came to be president of America and said there was nothing like it. But the good thing is that the new government in America is taking a second look at this. The international community must accept liabilities. Countries that are burning fossil fuel must accept liability. And that's the way that will ensure that we attain green economy. We need information, we need participation, and we need accountability. There is need for environmental accountability by everybody, by every organization, and by every country. Sustainable consumption and production. This is a sustainable development goal. It's a concept that green economy holds very dear. Strategic, coordinated, and integrated planning to deliver sustainable development, the green economy, and poverty alleviation. This is also something that the green economy holds very seriously. The green economy expects a just transition. Countries must transit within the limits of their resources. You cannot force countries to transit when they don't have the resources to transit. We have to redefine well-being in green economy. Gone are the days where we think that GNI, or gross domestic product per capita, says it all. You may be earning up to $2,000 per capita, and the people are not happy, and the people are not healthy, and the welfare of the people are not taken care of. Gender equity is an aspect of green economy, safeguarding the biodiversity and preventing pollution of any part of the environment. These are some of the concepts that green economy holds very dear. Now, there are so many opportunities in green economy, and I'm not going to dwell so much about that. I want to assume that this presentation will be available. I know that I've overshot my time. And so I would just want to move on to talk about what I expect us to do, particularly in this part of the world. In the African context, there is the urgency for research engagement that will address areas of need and opportunities in the green economy. Issues of employment, issues of income generation, productivity, competitiveness and innovation, enterprise development, low carbon technology, information and communication technology, gender, youth, leadership and governance, as well as human security. These are areas that African countries must seriously touch on, and this will, of course, help us to address the issue of sustainable development via the green economy concept. We have to build resilience in all the areas where we have stress, whether it's in the environment, whether it's in the economy, whether it's in our social setup. This will help in ensuring that our green economy performs the purposes that it's supposed to perform. So I'd like to conclude by saying that despite these benefits and opportunities of green economy, Africa lags behind and awareness of the concept remains quite low. Hopefully, these accelerators will be able to push this matter forward. Taking into account both the necessity for growth and the conservation of natural resources and a need for a comprehensive green economy strategy can lead to more sustainable and inclusive growth opportunities. We expect that poverty reduction, job creation, income generation, all can be attended to if we adopt green economy the way it should be adopted. So many authors have written about this, and I can refer you to Brand 2012, and of course you can also find things online about this. Resilience building must be addressed, like I said earlier on, and the question I ask is, how prepared are our youth? I want to hope that you take advantage of knowledge acquired at this conference to be able to push forward the climate agenda and also the green economy agenda. I thank you for your attention. Good morning.
Thank you so much, Prof, for the very lucid presentation. We are very grateful. We could go on and on, but then there's a session for question and answer, and questions have been rolling in. Surprisingly, we have more audience on the YouTube link than we have on Zoom. So when we get to the question and answer session, we'll just roll in these questions and we believe you'll be attended to. So very quickly,
so
because of our time,
how long are you guys going to keep me? Because I need to move on to something else.
Oh, okay. So you'd give us, we have each of the speakers, the next two speakers have 15 minutes. So we'll plead with them to stick to that time. What that means is that in the next 30 minutes, we'll be doing the Q&A.
Okay, I hope you can release me by 11:30 at the most.
Oh, yes, we will be able to.
Okay,
as a matter of fact, the program itself ends by 12. So we'll try to do that, and we'll do that. Thank you so much once again. Okay. So without much ado, we move on to the next person, and that's the person of Mr. Doyin Adeleye. He'll be speaking to us about renewable energy. Mr. Doyin Adeleye, you have the floor. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Femi. Thanks for the opportunity to join you this morning. Good morning to everyone. So basically, I'll be talking about renewable energy, and basically it's across three key point areas. And that's obviously giving a sort of a background introduction to it. Also talking about the future of renewable energy, and also looking at renewable energy in Africa, where we are and how we're progressing. Okay, it's a very common, it's a hot topic, carbon emission, renewable energy. We've all heard it, in one or two or three or four or more places. So it's basically, harnessing nature's power, and then also the power that comes from natural resources or processes that are constantly replenished. I mean, when you look at types of renewable energy, you're talking the most, common ones that are making a lot of, they're getting a lot of traction in the last couple of years. That's solar, wind, hydroelectric, geothermal, biomass, and tidal energy, which some people know as energy from the sea or wave. So renewable energy, I mean, is associated with green and clean energy, but it's important to know that there are subtle differences, and not all renewable energy is actually clean. For example, biomass. Biomass has been proven to emit, a certain amount of pollutants into the environment. So it's not totally renewable on that front. But when you look at it, you group it, renewable energy, recyclable, green energy does not release pollutants into the environment, things like CO2 emissions, and then you're looking at clean energy. Clean energy comes from natural resources. It's a very, very important time. Renewable energy is booming. Innovation keeps driving down the cost of renewable energy, and recent advancement in carbon capture and storage, for example, and then also the global drive towards a net zero, has fueled an expansion in renewable and green energy production. So all of these are sort of accelerating our transition to a clean energy future. And when you're talking about clean energy future, we all know that we're not at the same sort of scale in terms of comparison across different geographical regions. Some parts are obviously doing a lot much more than other parts of the world. Benefits of renewable energy, look at job creation opportunities, to be able to sort of work in that sector. We've seen increased opportunities for people to work, to do different things. We've also seen, we've also looked at the fact that it's a free source of energy generation, so that's a very, very important benefit, and it also improves, access. When you look at energy access across the world, Africa, for example, has been benefiting immensely from the expansion of renewable energy. We've been able to sort of get to some communities, rural communities, where the conventional, grid electricity doesn't get to. That's been able to provide them with some sort of, power and energy needs. And then also when you look at, utility bills, prices are coming down. What you pay for utility bills are coming down. If you've got renewable energy facility in your property, for example, you have an opportunity to generate your own electricity. You're not dependent on the grid or the power commission to provide you with electricity. And over the course of time, that pays back, and also reduces, your own sort of commitments, from the utility side. And also, income generation. People ask, how do you, generate income from having one of these renewable energy sources? It's basically something that is probably not quite widespread or common in Africa. But when you look at other developed countries, you have opportunities to basically generate energy from renewable sources, use some of the energy that you generated to power or to run your own sort of property, and the excess that you have from that generation, you export it back to the national grid, where you have a structured framework that allows you to get paid for the energy that you export back to the grid. There's something that we call the feed-in tariff in the United Kingdom. That's basically you having maybe a solar installation on your facility. You then sort of, generate X amount of energy, and you use Y amount of energy for your own property, and then you export maybe C amount of energy to the government, who then pay you for generating, and selling back to the grid, which can then be used to serve other sort of, communities or areas that require that. So those are the benefits. And when you look at disadvantages, it's been known that renewable energy, some types of renewable energy are not really reliable. Solar, for example, solar is basically dependent on the intensity of the sun. So when you don't have sunlight, the amount of energy that you generate is obviously reduced. Also when you're looking at production capacity, it tends to fluctuate. It's a variable on that. And then also environmental impact. Biomass is renewable energy, but biomass is not clean. So there's an environmental impact for using biomass. And I'll say to you, across the European Union, there's a lot of your biomass installation. It's much more cleaner than the conventional boiler system, but it is not totally emission free. So again, you've got a bit of an environmental impact to deal with on that front. And then also effectiveness, resource dependency. Again, it's a disadvantage, for renewable energy. When you look at the future of renewable, with the way the world's population is rising, that obviously means that demand for energy will rise exponentially as well. Therefore, it's important that innovation and expansion of renewable energy is done in such a good way to maintain a sustainable level of energy, and more importantly, the protection of the climate from climate change. So it basically means that it has a very, very critical role to play in the future. And as that continues to grow, it is key that we modernize our electricity grid and also other energy infrastructure. We have to make them smarter. We have to make them more secure and then also better integrate them. So it's a very, very pivotal time for renewable energy to basically take us into that sort of future that's clean and sustainable. And people ask questions, can renewable energy replace fossil fuel? That is the hope. When you look at fossil fuel is a final resource. Coal, oil, they're all final resources that will eventually run out. Renewables constantly being replenished. It's sort of, it's what we get in the nature. It keeps getting renewed. So it basically, means that it has a very, very good chance of replacing fossil fuel. However, we must get things right to ensure that we continue to develop and innovate around development. And looking at renewable energy in Africa, I think over the years, the transition to renewable energy in Africa has been progressing really well. And then Africa can continue to stand a chance to meet its energy needs, to adopt and ramp up sustainable use of renewable energy. With the right mix of policies, efficient regulations, good governance that obviously prioritizes energy access and energy sustainability, and then also access to financial markets. These are very, very key criteria that would determine the sustenance of renewable energy in going forward. We've seen a lot in terms of foreign money coming in from the developed countries to help to sort of drive that access to electricity across Africa, and we're hoping that will be sustained, and we'll use the money more efficiently to ensure that we have a better coverage across Africa. The likes of Egypt, Morocco, South Africa, and Nigeria, they've shown commitments toward accelerated use of modern renewable energy. And smaller countries like Cape Verde, Rwanda, and Switzerland, that they set ambitious renewable energy targets, and they're starting to basically look at case studies from other sort of bigger African countries who have had some successes to basically help them to continue that sort of transition. So I mean, conclusively, from my perspective, I think it will play a critical role. And then it's a large part of our future energy mix. While a total renewable energy future is possible, there is still so much work to be done before the world is ready to dispense with fossil fuels completely. When you look at things like investment in renewable energy, these are surpassed fossil fuel investment. You're looking at circa 250 billion US dollars of investment. That's what the market is worth currently. You're looking at countries like Germany, the United Kingdom. They've got circa 13% of their total energy use coming from renewable, and that's continuing to rise. You're looking at Africa, where hard or remote areas, communities, rural areas are getting a new lease of life because renewables is providing that sort of support to meet the energy needs for them. It gives you a lot of confidence that from an economic development perspective, Africa can continue to sort of go in the right direction, and then the world, obviously, looking at from a global perspective, where climate change is a hot topic, it basically means that you get a lot of support as well from developed countries who actually think that Africa has a very, very critical role to play to help them meet their own climate change targets. They will continue to support the adoption of renewable energy. They'll continue to look at ways where they can offset some of their own carbon emission across Africa, where we currently don't emit. When you break the fraction of carbon emission that's been emitted in other sort of developed worlds, and you try to come into Africa to have a sort of comparison, we're not anywhere near what they're emitting. What we ideally should be focused on around in Africa is climate resilience and adaptation. We've got better things to worry about, and again, I'd say energy access is very critical for African countries. So there's a sort of synergy that can be developed around that, and then it means that you get a lot of foreign money coming in to help Africa to
Sorry, Mr. Lele, could you help us wrap up because of time? Thank you.
So that's it. I was just literally going to wrap up.
There's so much information you're releasing. And there are so many questions coming up already on the YouTube link. So save some of those comments for the Q&A session.
No, that's what I mean. So I was just getting there to say that, there's a lot of work that can be done, across developed countries and the developing side. And that basically makes it, a very, very interesting time for renewable energy. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much for the time. I'm very grateful for the very insightful presentation that came from your hand. We're grateful to have you on board. Please just hang on. We have one more presentation.
I would just like to say as well, if anyone's got questions or if you need resources around renewable energy, I've not prepared a slide, but I'm more than happy to put resources together or answer questions. I can also be reached by email if we can't answer all of the questions today.
Oh, great. That'll be fine. So we would share your email in of the meeting. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
So the next presentation is to be anchored by Mr. Oluwafemi Abioye. He's a founder of Tamela Food and Tea, and he's speaking to circularity, consumption, and production. So we have you on board, Mr. Femi Abioye. We would appreciate if you could do this in 15 minutes or less so that we do the Q&A and then move on to the next. Thank you so much, Mr. You've been with us since the program started, really. So thank you so much once again. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and good morning. Hope I'm heard. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Oh, yes, we can hear you very well. Good morning. Yes.
Okay, I'll be doing a presentation at the 2022 edition of the Climate Actors Accelerators program, and I'll be speaking on circularity, production, and consumption. I've been introduced before. My name is Oluwafemi Abioye. I'm the founder of Tamela Food and Tea, and I'm also happy to say we are the winner of the Africa Green Business Award 2022. I'm sharing a slide for us that would guide us through the discussion. I'll try as much as possible to remain within that 15 minutes time. What I've done is to compress everything I want to say into about 12 slides. So that means the slide is about just 1 minute so that we can move on. And the first slide is just about the definition. What are we going to look at? Definition of circularity, that's circular economy, the strategies, the theory of production and consumption, then the principles guiding circular economy, the production itself. Let's look at it. And I have a few graphics here to illustrate everything that circular economy is talking about in terms of production and consumption. The four main concepts, then we look at examples of organization already practicing circular economy. And I'll be happy to say Tamela Food and Tea is also mentioned, or I put it here as part of it because that is what we also drive towards. Then we're going to talk about the benefits. Then we wouldn't just say all these English without looking at what Nigeria is doing in terms of circular economy. At least the government is saying something. I'm happy that our government is not left behind. And we're going to look at Nigeria's vision to attain net zero emission. That is between around 2050 and 2070. Then we see the top greenhouse emitters in Nigeria. Then we'll see some graphics again on circular economy, and we'll wrap it up. So we look at the definition. It's circular economy or circularity is only trying to take the world away from the straight line of production. You only have profit in mind and you want to produce a product and you go ahead and you produce your product. So what a circular economy says is a change to the model in which resources are mined right from the inputs before you produce, how you mine your resources, how you produce the product, and again, the consumption as a user, how do you consume and what happened after you finish consuming your products. So that is everything about circular economy. So the circular economy reduces material use. So right from the production stage, before you produce, you think of how best to produce your product and use the minimum material as possible. This doesn't mean you produce a fake product, but at least use the material minimum as possible. That is from the production side. Then you redesign your materials to be less resource intensive and recaptures waste. in traditional production, your waste is captured and you talk about recycling or it end up in the landfill. But in circular economy, it does not. Your waste is recaptured and it should form input into another manufacturing. So it's a clear deviation from the usual way of doing things, whereby your waste as a resources it goes into manufacturing another product. And graphics is beside that shows us how it moves from your cleaner production. You use fewer resources and you have a better service and you have an extended lifespan of your products. Lower there, you see you reduce resource dependency. And once you finish using, you collect at the end of life and you remanufacture. So your waste is not actually waste. Your waste goes into input of another process and another product. And it continues like that. And that is circular economy. So let's go into the strategy. What are the strategies of circular economy? The circular economy means rejecting the linear take, make waste economy and adopting a regenerative model, which is what we've explained in the previous slide, using processes that restore. So whatever you've used, you restore, you renew or revitalize their own sources of energy and materials, because you are not using your own energy to say, let's give example of PET bottles. In normal day world, your PET bottles end up in the waste bin or landfill. Someone picks it up, add its own energy to convert that waste into something else. No, that's not circular economy. What circular economy is saying is that that PET bottle will not even end up in the landfill or waste at all, because it's just as it is, it comes into another input material for another thing. Then let's look at the theory of production and consumption of circular economy. This is a good graphics that speaks to how the whole thing moves. The circular economy is a model of production and consumption which involves sharing, leasing, reusing, repairing, refurbishing, and recycling existing materials and products as long as possible. In this way, the life cycle of product is extended. And I make something in red fonts there. In practice, it implies reducing waste to the barest minimum. So if we want to discuss this a little in terms of life application, what we're saying here is that even before you produce, you can think of how best. We said you use less minimum materials as possible. If I want to use a practical example, we have a farm, a Greek media farm. It's located somewhere in Ngongo. It's Oyo State government land. So the land spans over 39,000 hectares, having over 31 agribusiness investors there. Coincidentally, I'm the president of the association, the Agro Park Investors Association. And what was part of our plan here, everybody is trying to do tree planting. It's actually part of the condition given by your state government for you to be an investor in that area. 20% of your investment must go into tree planting. So beside the government 20%, we ourselves were doing what is called cash crop majorly, and we're focusing more on cashew plantation. So how does that now go into circular economy? We have made it a point of duty that no single person should be looking at starting a cashew processing factory all by itself on its own farm. Yes, we know that you could be rich. We are all targeting 5 years time, 6 years time to start producing cashews. That started about 4 years ago. So in about 2-3 years, factories are expected to spring up within that area, processing agro produce. So what we've said among ourselves is, can we do clustering? Let us share. So best way of producing things using less or minimum materials possible. So that is a practical example of, even before you go into production, you talk about sharing. Involves sharing. If you need to lease, if I want to produce from my own farm, can we just have a centralized processing plant whereby I can come and lease maybe for 2 days, 3 days, leasing per time or leasing per week. You lease per period and you move on. Then we now talk about refurbishing reuse, repair, So all these things goes into circular economy in its practical form. So in practice, it implies you have to reduce waste to its minimum. In fact, what it also speaks to is that waste, if possible, if you look at that graphics, the red line there says incinerate or landfill. It should not even end up there at all. It should just move from after use into some other phases. Either you repair, you reuse, or you refurbish, or you recycle, and it enters into production again. So let's look at the principles. Circular economy is really based on 3 major principles. And what are these principles? I'm trying to look at time, maybe just about 5 minutes gone. Designing out waste and pollution right before production at the designing stage of a product. You must have in mind what waste and pollution would come out of the product in its minimal possible form. So before you produce, you must have in mind this item or this product I want to produce, these services I want to produce, what is the waste that is going to come from it? So it is not after you produce, you now start thinking of, how do we join the government in saying green Nigeria, clean up Nigeria, clean our waterways and what have you. No, circular economy is saying the waste and the pollution that is going to materials in use. That's another principle. Sorry, please, call is trying to interrupt me and that will affect my internet quality. I'm trying to see what I can do. Okay, let's continue. Are we still together, please?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, that's a snag.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Calls are trying to come in. I'm using my mobile network, so I'm trying to cancel the call so that we can hear ourselves as minimum as possible. I said I'm on item 2, keeping products and material in use. That is after the initial consumption. That is the theory in terms of consumption. The first one speaks to production. The second talks about consumption. So you can even look at yourself. What are the things in your house or in your offices that once you finish using them, it doesn't end up in a landfill. It doesn't end up in the trash bin. You keep using and reusing. Somewhere in my office, I want to just let us focus on something. Can you see my overhead? Can everyone see my overhead? I'm pointing at something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what you see there was done by actually the production manager of Tamela Food and Tea. She is a product of Lautech. I'm proud of her. And she read biochemistry. But something happened in between the line and we're discussing. I said, okay, this is not even an issue of recycling. Can we just put things together that doesn't end up in waste bin and turn it to a beautiful design in your office? And what you see shining in the middle there, it's a CD, an old CD that she picked from my car, turned it to a fancy design, and it ended up in my office on the wall. And I'm also happy that each time people come into my office in Ibadan here, they see this thing and people love it. And I say, oh, that is what it should be, and that is what we should all practice. So that is talking about the consumption. After you consume your resources, the CD has been fully used, the lifespan is gone, but here comes again into another design and another product, beautiful on the wall. So, and 3, regenerating natural system. Recycled products don't end up in landfills because you keep talking about this when you talk about circularity. In fact, the whole thing is about the concept of circularity, how things move in cycle. Without that cycle being broken and ended up in landfill. It's not what you go and pick in landfills. It shouldn't even end there as much as possible. So that is extending the product life cycle, making sure that they're continuously in use, like in cycle continuously. And we've talked about this, but let's just focus on, if you say production, what circularity means.
Mr. B,
Yes.
I know you've not exhausted your time, but I'd just like to crave your indulgence. Could you help us do a wrap up because of the Q&A? Some of the things you're speaking to, as I made mention of to Mr. Deleye, they are things we can't even exhaust. They are so deep, so relevant. But then people are already asking questions. I see about over 100 participants on our YouTube channel. In fact, I don't know how we'll manage the Q&A session. I don't know how we'll manage that. So please, could you wrap up in 2 minutes and let's attend to the Q&A, please, if you don't mind.
Okay, no problem. We'll look at.
Femi, I guess these are fundamental issues. Maybe we have to fix another time to address some of these issues. They are not things you talk about in 20 minutes. Not even 1 hour.
That's true. That's true. I agree.
In fact, when I saw the 15 minutes, I said I would try.
I'm so fascinated by what you guys are doing. So I think we'll create some other fora to ensure that we take these things fundamentally. So really very sorry that you've been cut short.
No problem. So we'll flip through. The next slide talks about just the 4 main concepts, which are broken into 2. How we manage resources, that is before you produce, and how we make the product. That speaks to production, the consumption, how we use the products, and what we do afterwards. So that is just the whole thing. And I said I'll give examples of organization already practicing circularity. So while we're looking at foreign, we should also look at local. Like we always say, we think global and we act local. So that's the logo of our own company there, Tamela Food and Tea. And we talk again about benefits. It's good to look at, okay, what's this whole English all about? What are the benefits? What does it do to us? What does it mean? And part of what it does is even we take it from item 5, it saves money. It creates value. So that alone is something. Then it can support local communities. It creates jobs. It makes people to be innovative. It improves access to innovation. You know, before you create something, you start thinking of, oh, after use, what happened to these products? I don't want it to end up in landfill. What would they do with it again? And you continue to think like that even before you do the product. So if we just talk about Nigeria briefly, I'm wrapping up really. So I was happy to see that, okay, the country, you know, we know how our country is, but at least the country has a document and has something to guide us saying that, oh, by 2050, they want to cut off greenhouse emission by 50%. This is actually the vision statement by the Nigerian government. So by 2050, they want to cut off the greenhouse emission by 50%. And between 2060 and 2070, we should have a net zero emission across all sectors. So just while wrapping up, I was shocked to also discover this during the course of putting my literatures together, that agriculture is one of the topmost. In fact, a friend I shared this with asked me, how come agriculture? I said, oh, agriculture is a corporate. I'm a farmer and I know a lot of things that happens on the farm, right from the tractorization to land clearing, bush burning, and the likes of them. I said, agriculture is not the largest, oil and gas is the largest. But what is the take home from here for everybody that is listening or going to watch this is that anywhere you find yourself, the one before the economy is others. So what I want to tell everybody is that anywhere you find yourself here in this cycle, I know education comes into others. If you are in utility company, industry, residential, you know, how are you going to apply circularity? Because all these things cannot make meaning, or the planet cannot be a good place for us to live if we did not take a conscious effort from individual to organization to government on changing how we do things. So anywhere you find yourself within this industry in Nigeria, you need to take conscious effort on what to do and how to do things differently. So everything just talk about graphics. This is a very complex graphics from industrial level to small scale industry and whatever on circularity. And I put in the reference there and I say, thank you so much. I'm within 15 minutes.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Emmanuel.
Thank you so much, Mr. Deleye. We are very grateful you stuck to the time. We are so sorry to have interrupted you. So very quickly, we'll move over to the Q&A session because of our time. By the way, I would like to also recognize our co-chair who joined in the course of the meeting. I guess because of network, she couldn't start with us. And that's in person of Professor Mrs. Ngozi Odiaka. You're welcome on board, ma'am. Thank you so much. Much later in the course of the meeting, she would have a word or two with us. So thank you so much for joining us, Ma. Now to the first question. Someone asked that what is the state of the Climate Change Adaptation Act 2021 in Nigeria, that not so much has been done at present, and that we're in 2022 and approaching the end of the first half of the year. So that's the first question. The person didn't direct the question to any specific facilitator. It was just a general question. So I'll move on to yet another question that has been asked. Well, there's a question about awareness at the grassroots. It appears to be low. How do we increase awareness about climate change adaptation and economy at the grassroots? I guess that question is directed towards Professor Bupola, since he spoke on green economy. I don't know if we want to take the questions one after the other. So maybe we'll look at the first two questions and then we'll move on to the others. So could any of the speakers help us speak to the Climate Change Act Nigeria 2021? Otherwise, the question directed to Professor Bupola, maybe could just help us attend to that. The one on the how green economy can be made known to those in the grassroots, rural communities, even urban poor, and those in such areas.
Can I take the one on awareness?
Yes, sir, you can.
I don't have information on the update on the Climate Adaptation Act, so I cannot talk about that. We can find out where it is and what level it is. But I can take that of awareness of green economy at the rural area. If you look at all that has been said, the one on energy, the one on circularity, my presentation on green economy, there is a common strand: conservation of resources, wise utilization of resources, okay, sustainability. This cuts across. And the reality also is that many of our communities are not strange to these issues. They probably don't have these flamboyant names we call these things. When you talk about conservation, they are deeply involved in it. They know it. But maybe directly to your question, I guess an activity like the one we're having this morning is another way of ensuring that we can extend current information, contemporary information, issues about innovation to our rural areas. You know, these days people are so busy on the social media, attacking government, attacking everybody. Can we divert some of this energy to get in touch with our rural folks and give them information? This will help in sustainable development. So it's for all of us to do. Unfortunately, the extension system in this country is now weak. That's a duty for the extension system. But it's so weak nowadays, but we can all play our role in ensure that this information permeates across the different strata of the society.
Thank you so very much, sir. So the second question.
Sorry,
okay.
Also just something to add quickly to that question. Thank you very much, Professor. Now, obviously, with the Climate Change Act, I know for one that the framework to basically achieve the low GHG emission it's been put together, and that there are ongoing work to try to basically put things through a national plan and a program. It's going slowly, but one of the good things is that we realize or we recognize the importance of that act, which is why we put it in place, or that legislation, which is why we put it in place. And the heavy lifting now is to actually start to put things into plans and programs and start to integrate that into different sectors to drive things from that front. It's going slowly, like with most things in the country, but they're engaging external support and consultants. They're doing bits and bobs locally to try to improve things. And I think it's one key area that we will need to take more seriously, especially because we've gone to COP26 last year, for example. We've made certain pledges and we're expecting certain support, most importantly on the financial side of things. And before all of these can happen, they will want to see the sort of progress that we're making. And I know that with Nigeria, with the sort of challenges and constraints that we have, finances is one of that. We're currently trying to do as much as we can to show the world that we're doing something so that we can get the necessary funding to drive things further.
Thank you, Mr. Adelev.
Can I also just put a word to it? Just 2 quick comments on the 2 questions for now.
Okay,
on the act, on the question, I think there's a Department of Climate Change at the Federal Ministry of Environment.
Environment, yes.
And they are saddled with lots of these responsibilities. So a call to them or a visit to them can actually present the actual state, since the questionnaire is asking for the actual state of the Climate Act. So they will have update on that. But the second one is that interests me most is that awareness. I differ a bit from Professor Popola. The rural people are not aware at all. And I will put the blame straight to government. I appreciate University of Ibadan so much because I've done few things that I involve Center for Sustainable Development, even in my farm area, that's somewhere in Igongon. It's a 3 hours journey from Ibadan. And they had followed me there to do few things to let the locals know. But what I need to say is this: the government itself needs to, as a matter of urgency, start creating, if it's going to be a campaign or an awareness program, to all our local communities, for them to know that their activities, directly or indirectly, is affecting the climate. In fact, it has affected the climate. I'm speaking now as a direct person that is being affected. I'm a farmer, and this year, 2022, if you do an interview to farmers, they haven't planted so much crops, especially the arable crops, because the rains are not stable yet. If you go across farming community in Oyo State, there are no good rains. And this is just a straight climate change effect in our face. But to my surprise, at those local areas and local communities, do you know what they do? Because they've come to my farm a lot of times to say, oh, agri media. Let me say it in the way people will understand, but I will interpret in Yoruba. Ojo ro, because anilati bo ojo. That they will say there's no rainfall because they need to appease the gods of rain. And this has happened year in, year out. I'll ask them, how do you bow ojo? They will say, they need pepper here. They need theron, they need this. I'll say, oh, don't you know that your tree felling is going to have a long-term effect on your environment? So in summary to that, if you go to Ibarapa axis of Oyo State, if you go to Okiogun axis of Oyo State, these are the charcoal headquarters of Nigeria. Our government is not seeing the negativity of this uncontrolled charcoal production. It is so bad that they had felled all the major trees in the forest. They are going into shrubs to make those charcoal. So please, there should be conscious effort by government to reduce especially tree felling and forest degradation across all the Southwest, across Nigeria, before we even talk about regenerating or issue of planting trees all everywhere, like what the speaker mentioned about Fashola in Lagos that did there. So please, the locals need to be they are not aware. All that was in their mind, or that is in their mind to date, is they need to appease the God of rain. That if they appease the God of rain, rain is going to fall. Thank you.
Well, Femi, I just need to bring in some clarifications here. We have in the Center for Sustainable Development a program on indigenous knowledge and development. And the point being raised, it's not about misdemeanor of individuals, but in the Yoruba culture, in the African traditional culture, knowledge of these things exists. It is different from the abuses that people are subjecting this thing to. I will give an example. There's something called Igboro, sacred groves.
Yeah.
Right. There's a purpose for it. It's for conservation. Is to ensure that greenery is kept. Unfortunately, people misbehave. So it's not necessarily because of awareness, but I'm happy that you touched on charcoal. I'm hoping that we'll be able to organize something on charcoal. Now, the reality is this: there is demand for energy. Even in the UK, people are buying charcoal now. In European countries, people are buying charcoal, right? Why we have to, I'm a forester, why we have to do something to stop this or to reduce this. We also have to start thinking of how do we take advantage of that emerging market of charcoal. And what that demands is planting more trees, more research. So I go back to my point. It's not as if people are not aware of some of these things. They are aware, but people will always misbehave. Then don't also forget that those who come for this charcoal are not necessarily the rural people. They are the city people, businessmen. Those who are facilitating the cutting of these trees are the rent seekers, the contractors.
Yes.
So, and these rural people are helpless. Yes, government comes in this case. How does the government protect the vulnerable ones? I agree absolutely with you on that.
Thank you. We can move on.
Thank you so much, sir. The next question I would like to direct that to Professor Popola because of time. So there are so many, just as Professor Popola said, I think this is about the last question we'll have to attend to. If we want to finish this program by 12, we have barely 1 hour left. Unfortunately, that 1 hour is not enough based on what we planned for. So we loaded so much in this program, and we'll take cue from what we've done in this and then improve in the subsequent series we're going to be having. But let me just direct this particular question to Professor Popola. We used to have in place an active forest guard system. I'm directing that question to him because of his vast experience in that field. How can we bring back that effective system? Because to a very large extent, that would help to curb deforestation, some of the security challenges that we also have. So how can we bring back that effective system, which once was operational in Nigeria, especially the southern part? Thank you, sir.
Well, that's a whole book project, which I can do for you, but let me see if I can just attend to that within 2-3 minutes. Well, there was a structure in place right from the inception of forest governance, a structure in place. Within every forest reserve, we used to have what we call enclaves. Can you hear me, please?
Yes.
I can hear you very well, sir.
Within every forest reserve, we used to have what we call forest enclaves. These enclaves were inhabited by people within and around the forest edge. And they were actually like security people. When there was going to be fire outbreak, they were the ones that will raise the alert, okay? When there was going to be attack, they were the ones that will prompt the government. Unfortunately, these enclaves became compromised. They started allocating forest land to people I would describe as foreigners. That is what has snowballed into what we have now. So even if you have these forest guards, without them being armed, I am not very sure they can handle the situation on the ground. But I think a good starting point will be to start the recruitment and training of individuals, young people, to serve as forest guards. That may help. But there's also something very fundamental. We actually also don't know what our forest resources are now. Many governments don't even know where the forest reserves are. Even people who work in the forestry department, they don't have information. They don't have inventory of what they have. So resource assessment is also very important. We need to take all of this together. It's not just employing forest guards. We have to do resource assessment. We have to go back to the laws of the forest.
Thank you so much, sir. So this brings us to the end of the first Q&A session. We would have loved to continue, but then we would overshoot our time if we do so. So thank you so much, Professor Labode Popola. Thank you so much, Mr. Doyan Delayet, and thank you so much, Mr. Oluwafemi Abiyi. We are grateful for your very insightful presentations and for how you attended to some of the questions. There are other questions that came up, and we've taken stock of this. We could also share with you by mail, because we also have the contact of some of our participants, and then we could relate those to them. Yeah, and because this in itself is not an end, it's a means to an end, so it's an ongoing thing. That's a good side of it. So thank you once again. And that being said, we want to.
If you will allow me, I need to thank those two gentlemen very specially. I don't know them, but you guys brought them to this event. I want to appreciate them and also want to ask for their hands of fellowship. I think we need to have some roundtable discussion to be able to put things together, maybe write grants proposal, and also try to see how we can jointly influence policy. Yeah, we want to work with you.
Christoph, yeah, I'm open to that. Thank you, Professor Popola. I'm very, very receptive to supporting that. So yes, I've got my contacts available through Femi, and I'm happy to take us forward.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dele. I believe Mr. Abiy has already been engaging with SESDEV, so he's one of us already. And
yes, thank you so much, and thanks, Prof. We still even have plenty of things to do together.
We'll move on to the next presentation, and that will be facilitated by Dr. Aigbe. Dr. Alexander Aigbe is the Executive Director of African Cleanup Initiative. He's speaking to us on safeguarding the environment and the ecosystem. We will plead with him and crave his indulgence that he helps us to make it just about 10 minutes so that we'll be able to wrap up this program by 12, because we have our brothers who would like to pray after that time. So please, could you help us to make it about 10 minutes, please? Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Aigbe.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. I want to thank the previous speakers. I took my time to listen to them, and I've gained so much from their session. I'm not going to use any sliding. I might put it on my video where the network is not too good. So I'm going to speak directly from my heart, do a bit of storytelling, and probably so I can work within the 10 minutes that I have. I'm asked to speak on safeguarding the environment and the ecosystem. Basically, I think, let me just take time to define those terms that are in that particular topic. Safeguarding basically talks about protecting from harm or damage with an appropriate measure as well as what you can do to protect the environment. We know that's our surroundings, the conditions we find ourselves, everything around us, both living and non-living things. Ecosystem itself is like a biological community where organisms interact, all of that. And I think to a large extent, my task this morning, I would like to focus on what I work, more like a call to action to everyone on this session. We've had so much, and we keep hearing so much when it comes to climate change, comes to talk about renewable energy, talk about circular economy. We will keep hearing. And one thing I always say to myself is, after every wonderful lecture we've had from amazing Prof and the other two gentlemen, what do I want to do next? What is my take home? What little action do I want to put forward as a result of what I've learned, which for me is all about the safeguarding we were talking about. And some of us have been hearing, and we've actually done so much. I would love to appeal to all. Like I say to people, we are all environmental stewards. And as a steward, we have simple tasks to do, and that's just to protect Mother Earth. Thank God for this year's World Environment team that focused on just one Earth alone. We don't have to, it's just one. Like I was speaking to some guys yesterday. I told them, we're not like computer games that you say you have 9 lives. When you kill one, you have 8 left. You kill the second one, you have 70, you're done. But we just have one. And God is expecting so much from us on how we deal with this one life He has given to us, one planet Earth He has given to us. I have a quote which I like to share most times, which I put it this way, that the environment is God's gift to man, and what you do with it is your gift back to God and to humanity. The environment is God's gift to man. What you do with it is your own gift to God and to humanity. And now, safeguarding this same beautiful planet Earth that we have, it might look so big, but I can tell you the little things that we do speaks volume, goes a long way to tell what happened down the line. I thank God for this word sustainability that is always in context now. But sustainability, basically, it's everything you do. And you're just thinking about today and now. You're thinking about the lives coming after you. You're thinking about the generations coming after you. Will they find a safe earth to live in? And that's why I tell people, when you're doing stuff, please don't just think about yourself alone. We are all angels. We are humans with wings to protect Mother Earth. And we have a whole lot to do. I'm going to cite some of the things we do in our organization. I work with the African Cleanup Initiative. It's an NGO, been running for over 12 years now. If you're on social media, you can Google ACI Nigeria on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You will see our activities. You can send a DM. I will definitely reply you because I might not have time to take all the questions now. But then, little action. When we started our cleanup event in 2010, one of the major challenges we had back then was getting volunteers to come and work for the environment. And so when we went out to gather volunteers together to say, let us do something on the environment, the kind of feedback we were getting then was, how much are you going to pay me to give you my time to do something for the environment? And I was like, wow. It's our environment, all about the money. I know you need money, everybody needs money. But my dear, the environment is not healthy enough. No matter the amount of money you have, you will not feel safe spending it because you will not even love what you will get out of the environment down the line. There was one cleanup we did one particular year with a particular local government. And so we're engaging local government chairman for like partnership. And the guy was saying to us that we cannot give you the kind of support you want from us as a local government simply because the cleanup you want to do in our own local government, it's not our project, it's your own project. And for me, that was like, wow, if a local government chairman can put that line forward, then it means that we have a whole lot to do, because for him, it's more like, it's not about the environment, it's about who will be seen at the end of the day. And that's the kind of mindset some of us have as young people, as corporate organizations, as government. We need to change it. We need to change it. I'm not saying to everybody, I'm saying that's the kind of mind we see most time on the field, that people don't care about the environment again. Talking about how we can safeguard our environment and the ecosystem. Let's even go home, the way we use our water at home. Some of us can open the tap, we're washing our teeth, the tap will remain on from beginning to the end of why that process is going on, because we don't care. We just feel water is there, let's just use it anyhow. This thing have an effect on the environment, whether we like it or not. The kind of choices we make, we need to start thinking long term, not just on the local term, not on the short term, on the long term basis. How do we conserve energy at home? Thank God the guy I talked about renewable energy, fantastic. The bulbs, you leave it on 247. Even when you're not at home, your bulbs are on, your lights are on. It's like everything is on because you have access to power or something. We need to also look at it from that angle as well. It matters a lot. It goes a long way. And these days, thank God for the shopping mall. They will tell you, outside Nigeria, guess you have to pay for your shopping bag. But here, you can go to a shopping mall. They are willing to give you the nylon free of charge. I went to a shopping mall one day in Lagos. They hang their beautiful reusable bags. And I was like, oh, this bag looks like, how much is it? Can I buy it? And I was so amazed at the kind of price you were calling. Something very, very high. And a lot of thoughts start going through my mind. If you're selling a shopping bag for that high, how do you expect people like us, a common man, to buy it and want to use it when they can just see a polythene bag for, let's say, 50 naira or 100 naira? So you can see that a lot has to come when it comes to our mindsets. We can't actually do much about not actually taking time to work on our minds. How do you see the environment? Is it a dumping ground? Is it something that you don't even care what happens to it? Is it something that you don't even pay more attention to it? When was the last time you volunteer for an event that will have an impact on the environment? Maybe that can just be like a take-home question for when was the last time you gave out your time, your energy, your money for a community project, for an event that will have a positive impact on the environment. If it's been long, please, I would appeal. Maybe we'll start looking for one around our platform. We run a lot of events, projects, both in Lagos and outside Lagos. You could volunteer with us. You could join other organizations, your community, where you live, and do something for the environment. Because please, this is just one earth that we have. This is one life that we have, and we have a whole lot to do in order to protect it. And so volunteering is something that we cannot shy away from, because as stewards of the environment, they need us to do something for the environment. The ecosystem is just a community. And talking about looking at it from the angle of a community, it means it captures, it carries a different set of people, with different behavior, with different attitude, with different background. We should look at how can we work together. There's unity. Unity is very, very key, very, very powerful. Peace in the community can go a long way to help us to safeguard. I'm very sure places that they are having, maybe the Boko Haram are having their issues and all of these things, they are not finding it very safe or okay to protect the environment. Why? Because the place is not peaceful. So as much as we can, let us think peace. Peace. It goes a long way to protect Mother Earth. Do like somebody once said, what you will not like them to do to you, don't do it to other people. That is very, very key when it comes to protecting Mother Earth. And sincerely speaking, by protecting our environment, we are giving back to humanity. We are giving back to our planet. Our future generation will come up and will say, wow, my dad left something awesome for me. My mom left something awesome for me. You'll be proud to tell your child that while I was young, I did X, Y, Z. And this was my input towards Mother Earth. So it becomes like a challenge. And that's why for one of the projects we run in our organization now is we go to schools, nursery school, primary school, and we talk to them about the environment. And there's a part of what we do, which we call the community service. We will get them to do a community service within their neighborhood. We'll get them hand gloves, we'll get them face masks, we'll get them trash bags. We'll say, just walk within your street. If it's to pick the PET bottles alone with their teachers and our team on ground to supervise that activity, it registers something on their mind. Sincerely speaking, I didn't even know anything about volunteerism until I got to like 30 years or thereabout. Sincerely speaking, because nobody told me that I can volunteer, I can do something with the environment. Nobody told me all of that. And so that is why we as an organization, we are looking at those set of generation coming up to instill in them values that they can grow with, get them to be involved when it comes to engaging the environment. I'm telling you, you might think it's little, but those little acts, they speak volume. The environment is just like what some of us will call in computer GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. What are you putting in? You can't put in mango you expect to rape maybe a pineapple. It doesn't work like that. Let's just check ourselves. Let's use ourselves as a case study. What are the things you do when you take your pure water sachet? Do you actually just throw it away, or you look for a nice bag? And the other day, the mechanic came to our house to work on my car, and the first thing he said, Mr. Alex, your car is always dirty. And I was just smiling, because most times you come to the house on a Monday to pick the car after Sunday service, and like your car is always full of wraps, PET bottles, this, and I was just smiling. Why? Because I go to church with my family, and I've told my kids it's better to keep the car dirty than to keep the environment dirty. So when they get something, you don't throw it out on the car, you put it in the car. So probably the next morning we'll just pack everything out. It's just for them to understand that I place so much value on the environment than my own car. Litter the car, keep the environment clean. I'm fine with that. So all of this little art as something that we need to not just know it alone. Let us pass it on to everyone around. When they come in contact with you, they just know that they cannot litter the environment. Why? Because they know you will speak up. You will speak up. So let's be the voice that the next generation, our friends, our colleagues, our family members need to align with. We're talking about safeguarding. It's not the government. We can't leave it for the government alone. Thank God they're coming up with policy that would help us. Beyond the policy, thank God for bigger organizations that are doing events, doing programs, doing projects. Beyond all of that, you and I as human, what is the little step? What is the little action? The little light that you carry on the inside of you, we need to let it shine. That some other person will come to understand that when you're close to Debo, when you're close to Bola, you don't litter the environment. Why? Because over time, they have seen you stand for the environment. They've seen you giving your voice for the environment, and which is what the safeguarding the environment and the ecosystem we're talking about. So the government have a part to play, the organizations have a part to play. We individuals also have our part to play. Let us do our own little. It might look so little, but I tell you, the impact is wow. Because it takes a little drop of water to make a mighty ocean. You do your little, I do my little. In the long run, we'll have impact that will speak volume, which is why we as an organization, we advocate a lot for community service. On Instagram, we are ACI Nigeria, A for Apple, C for Church, I for England, Nigeria, same thing on Twitter and Facebook. You can start church. We partner with organizations a lot. We do a lot of projects. We do a lot of events. In fact, we are planning a conference in Calabar, Transcorp Hotel in Calabar in August, where we're going to get in environmentalists together, lovers of the environment, to start talk and call to action. Because beyond the talk, we need to also do call to action. And that's why we're always on out to see how we can partner with people and to see how we can work with them to actually achieve this goal. Thank you very much within my 10 minutes for having me. And like I said, you can DM on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. Personally, I will respond to you. Just mention that you're part of this session. I want to ask a question. I will give you priority. Thank you very much for having me, guys, and God bless you.
Amen. Thank you so much, Dr. Aigbe, for the time. You spoke with so much passion, and I believe we all picked a thing or two from what you said. So for the sake of emphasis, I would just like to say this, that this in itself is just like an eye-opener or like an icebreaker. We are having a 2-month learning session where each of the facilitators will engage with participants, our youths, the climate actors that will be selected. So we are saying to all the participants, especially the youths, that this in itself is not a one-stop program. So we are looking at how we can build a community, an ecosystem of people who have gained proficiency as to how we can do climate adaptation. We can adopt climate adaptation and mitigation strategies so as to promote resilience across the country, because that is where we'll start from. We'll start from where our sphere of influence is. We've talked about what the government can do. In our own little space, what can we do? And so this is not something we're just doing for one day. We are looking at how we can do it over time and how we can have experts engage with us, mentor us. So that's about it. I just thought I should make mention of that clearly. So that being said, we would have a brief profile of the next speaker. We're supposed to have a break session right now, just a 5-minute break, but unfortunately we won't be able to have that. I also want to crave your indulgence because we are way behind time and we don't want to keep you waiting any further. So without further ado, let's have a video, short 1-minute video of the next presenter. Thank you, everyone.
So Nihal Al-Sabag is an environmental expert and an assistant professor who taught and practiced architecture and urban design for over 15 years in several institutions and consultancies in Egypt and the UAE. She earned her PhD from the AA School of Architecture in London in 2017 and MSc degree in Sustainable Design of the Built Environment from the British University in Dubai and Cardiff University in UK in 20.
Hello?
Hi.
Can hear you. Hello, can hear you.
Dr. Sabag, we can hear you. Please go ahead with your presentation. Thank you.
Sure. So my screen is visible?
Yes.
Thank you very much for the opportunity of presenting today. Such an informative talks on different areas and sectors, financial, buildings, and so on. So today I would like to present achieving a sustainable and livable climate towards a net zero future. I will focus on sustainable buildings, and I will reflect on the sector of transportation, which I have presented before with the SGE initiative. As an architect, we are very much related to building industry and the building design and how we could implement all the different sectors that we're talking about and its reflectance on climate change. So if we look at the emissions and the net zero goals that has been put, and I think in the previous co-op session, a lot of reflections from different cities and countries and green ambassadors worldwide have reflected the importance and significance of adopting the net zero strategies into their implementations towards reducing emissions, global emissions and local emissions as well. So I would raise a question, what are we doing? How could we achieve the net zero goals that we're talking about? Are we actually focusing on the runners, or are we focusing on the infrastructure? If we look into the statistics that are reflected by each and every country on different sectors, for the greenhouse emissions, we can see that on the local context, whether in Nigeria or here in Cairo, we would be able to understand how much we can implement those strategies locally, and accordingly reflect on the national determined contributions that are the criteria to be able to reflect back on the progress that is being taken locally. So the commitments by 2030, one of the statements that is clearly announced by different countries, existing buildings reduce their energy consumption and eliminate emissions from energy and refrigerants. So if you look deeply into that, our ability to be able to remove the fossil fuels as fast as possible. How much can we cut there and reflect back and relate it to the SDGs? I wouldn't focus much, but I think the green economy and circular economy that we've discussed in previous sessions very much relate to what we're talking about. So are we focusing on cities, rural areas, which is more influential, and what is the status of these particular cities into the regional framework that is being adopted? So when we look at net zero carbon buildings commitments by 2030, so building and construction sector is required to decarbonize the built environment. And decarbonizing the built environment is a kind of contradictory with the idea of development, because we're required to build cities, we're required to improve the quality of life. So how much can we do that in terms of design, in terms of building, construction, in terms of occupations, looking into the behavioral patterns of users and people, and the deconstruction, which brings us to the notion of the life cycle impact. So what happens to buildings after we build them, roads after we construct them? So that brings us back to the idea of the value chain, which is very important. If we look at the different parts of the value chain, starting from the financing, what are the sources of financing? And I think this is very much related to the previous co-op and the coming ones as well. How does this reflect to the planning, design, and commissioning stage of buildings, whether it's buildings, infrastructure, transportation, or even if we look into the renewable energy part, the construction materials, the availability of raw materials, which ones are we using, and so on, the manufacturers, the local suppliers, the logistics, which is a very important part and reflects very much to the idea of transport, because it ties in the idea of embodied carbon that we look into the different materials. The construction, which is in itself a different sector in terms of sustainable construction. How does this impact?
Sorry, Dr. Sabak, it appears your slides are not moving. Could you help us scroll down the PowerPoint slides? They are not moving.
Is it on the first slide or the second slide?
No, we're just seeing the first slide. So we would appreciate if you help us move on to other slides as you speak so that we could follow you.
Sure.
Thank you. Then maybe you put it in presentation mode. Thank you.
Is it clear now?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is clear. Yes,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you.
So this was the decarbonization of the built environment, the value chain, and looking into the life cycle. This is a brief breakdown of the different sectors in the building industry, but again, it reflects very much to the transportation and other sectors. So I have reached the construction area and then the property market, looking into the operation, which in itself is a very, very big sector, looking into the emission. And it's not very much under control because users' behavior gets involved there. And that's when the buildings live for such a long time, because we're not building cities for now, we're building future cities. And what happens in the future with the end life cycle? So how much can we intervene in the existing or the new environments with the idea of the net zero carbon? I think I will reflect back on that at the end of the presentation. Achieving net zero energy, two of the standards that were issued by ASHRAE, which we refer to in small and medium office buildings and multifamily buildings as an example. I wouldn't compare to other green certifications or other green standards. I would just focus on the achieving the net zero energy in terms such as a framework, looking into it as a framework. So this particular framework is very interesting if we look into it deeply, because there is this Energy Star rating system where you can start addressing your building, the type, the occupants, the country, the location, the climate, and so on. And accordingly, you would be able to achieve an Energy Star score. Having said that, what happens during the building operation again? So, okay, as designers in the different sectors or in the construction industry, what happens during the operation cycle of the building again? And how can we ensure the changes that happens in the newly built developments can still operate as a net zero? I think if we were able to solve this riddle, it would help us a lot to intervene in existing environments and buildings. Net zero energy buildings, it's a new idea. It's not a new idea, but it comes with common barriers, which is the initial costs. We always tend to think of how can we reduce the initial costs, which we all know, I think, that the initial costs of renewables and creates a very difficult balance to achieve when we try to achieve a clean sources of energy, reduce the emissions for the environment. All the environmental approaches still at this stage remain at higher costs on different sectors. So achieving this balance and looking at the financial investments and gains over time remains quite challenging. So the idea of the zero energy buildings relies in two elements, which is the initial cost and the occupational schedule. If we look at the occupational schedule, it all depends on the type of buildings that we're talking about, where are they located, and how will they operate? Even when we discuss the idea of climate change, how can they resist, become resilient, adapt to the catastrophes or the changes that happen even at heat increase levels? Having said that, I think all stakeholders must get involved to be able to achieve our net zero targets that we're talking about on all sectors, especially in buildings. So it's not only the designers, it's not only the construction sector, it's not only the developers, the green bonds, the green financial statements, it's also the users, the occupants of buildings, and it's also next generations, which I think we are discussing much in today's session or the coming presentations, and how would these buildings be occupied with the coming generation that is required to keep the cities and the building industry at the level that we aim to achieve. First thing within this framework is to determine the energy use intensity targets. So how it works basically is based on the climatic zones. We set the climatic zones, and according to the building function, we're able to select our energy target. And then the design goes deeper looking into the thermal comfort, the energy consumption, into the different elements, and accordingly, we will be able to achieve or do not achieve the net zero targets that have set early. I would start with the design process briefly, which is the concept design of buildings, and then the commissioning, bidding and construction, and integrate the building the knowledge base. How are we going to achieve that? I think this diagram, if we look into it deeper, in each and every element, we would be able to say and contextualize if it is applicable or will be able to apply this in the local context or not. Because I think we have a lot of challenges between the knowledge, the tools, the monitoring equipment, and so on. So that again engages the how element. Having said that, we have set, according to the framework of the net zero buildings and the function of the building, the target of energy that is required. If we look into the simulation process, so here the role of technology and building simulations have helped a lot in order to be able to predict what happens or how these buildings would impact the environment after they operate. At the design process, we would integrate the climate, the form and shape, window to wall ratio, and so on, shading, user behaviors, and all of these elements. The ASHRAE standard in 2018, looking into the office buildings, if we focus on office buildings and the impact of energy saving, we would realize the different influences, whether the cooling, whether the lighting, whether the water, the sources of clean energy, and how much it influences the different stages of the building, whether it's the concept phase, such as being able to roughly estimate the energy savings. Again, from an architect's perspective, it's quite challenging to be able to estimate or come up with a design idea that actually integrates a net zero building, because until the project proceeds to the schematic design phase and then the design development, things are not shaped much in form. So having rough estimates at the beginning requires a shift between detailed analysis and generic analysis. During the schematic phase, also there are a lot of tools within this framework that integrates the building layout, recommendations for orientations, which I will reflect briefly on them. Energy efficient strategy.
Hello, Dr.
Yes.
Hello, Dr. Sabah. Please, I would like to crave your indulgence. We are running out of time.
Okay.
Your PowerPoint presentation, we'll request for it and share with participants. And since we've promised them that this is just the first in the series of a long-term engagement, so we know you would take time to be able to attend to some of the questions they have, as well as some of the comments they would like to make. So that being said, we would like to request if you could wrap up in 1 minute so that we attend to other segments. Is that fair enough?
Yes, I will do my best to do that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So again, reflecting on the how-to strategies, I was intending to explain one of the strategies deeper, but due to the remaining time, we'll just go through them very schematically. Reducing the peak demand and energy resilience. So adopting an energy efficient strategies, thinking of the operation of the building again, bringing energy from renewable resources, natural daylighting and efficient, and so on. So there are a few strategies in this particular framework that is very interesting to adopt. Looking into the climatic zones, these are the list for the building and site planning, envelope daylighting, lighting controls, electrical lighting, power distribution systems, service water heating, and sources of renewable energies. I was intending to elaborate a little bit on the building and site planning, which integrates the building site characteristics. So there are a lot of strategies that help identify before even we start, according to the function of the building, how much we can integrate those strategies at an early stage. So I think the whole idea that I would just highlight on is how do we adopt the integration of specific strategies at an early design stage, ensuring that after the building is constructed and operated, it would still produce lower emission. Not sure if it succeeds at all functions to the net zero goals. I wouldn't elaborate much on the building orientations and the details of that. And the renewable energies, whether they are integrated within the site or they come from other sources at a distance. And then I come back to the idea of building and construction sector to decarbonize the built environment. And having said very schematically and briefly, I think it makes a lot of difference. How are we going as countries implement net zero goals within the existing environments, which is actually being built, constructed, and actually operated. So I think this is very much reliant on the user's behaviors and the amount of finance that we can retrofit these existing environments and functions. Looking into the existing cities and the complexity, on real ground, such frameworks are being put, and we deal with that a lot in many case studies that we have discussed, and the challenges between the outdoor environment, which relates a lot to the transport sectors, and the building itself is in itself requires a lot of focus. Thank you.
We're very grateful for your time, and we're sorry to have ended that session impromptu. That's because of the short time we have at our hands to contend with. But then please just hang on a little. We want to take the question and answer session when the remaining presentations are done. We're supposed to have 3 more presentations. Unfortunately, we've not been able to establish a good connection with the third person. And so we'll be having 2 more presentations just within a space of 10 minutes each. And so we'll then have a question and answer session. That being said, we move on to the next presenter, and that is in person of Dr. Koroba Igazuma. He's the head of sustainability at the Dangote Group, and he'll be speaking to us on elevating youth engagement for sustainable climate action. Dr. Koroba, you have 10 minutes to speak to us on that subject. If you could do that in less time, we'll be very grateful. The floor is yours, sir. I thought, please go ahead. Good morning, Dr. Koroba.
Yes, hello, good morning, everyone. Nice to be at this conference. I see that the time has dropped from 15 to 10 minutes. I would see what I can do about that. Let me quickly share my screen. I believe I also shared my presentation. Do you have it over there, or I can just share my screen?
Please go ahead and share your screen.
Okay.
You could just put it in presentation mode. Yes, please.
Right. So I hope you can see my screen now.
Visible, but could you put it on presentation mode? So it will be. It is. Oh, okay. It is. So please go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good morning. And I'm just happy to hear all these presentations that are being made. I'm very hopeful that Africa and indeed Nigeria, we're going to meet some of the we're going to be able to address some of the challenges confronting us as far as climate change is concerned. I want to acknowledge Dr. Nihal for her presentation. I think I need to look more at this presentation. And she had made a point about how it can be a contradiction to say that we need to decarbonize the build sector. And at the same time, Africa needs infrastructural development. So there are lots of contradictions in this bid to address climate change. But today I would be speaking to the topic, elevating youth engagement for sustainable climate action, because I know that I observe that there seems to be a gap in the voices, voices and institutions that are addressing climate change. And just for some context, there's a lot of potential for climate action. And of course, one of the major potentials lies in the energy poverty that we experience in Africa and in Nigeria. I understand that even in countries like Ghana, where we have power, and it's said that you have 24 hours light in Ghana. I know that the bills are not very easy to bear, so it's still an indicator that we do have an energy poverty issue to address. However, we need to tackle climate change, and this is where we have all sorts of disconnects as well. So the energy market, as we see it, actually has a lot of opportunities for investments, but many times these opportunities are not taken. And I just want to really focus on the youth. If the youth are part of a movement, a climate action movement, there are certain aspects that we can leverage. And I know that there would be aspects that are out of reach, but I think that addressing energy problems and the persistent barriers to energy transition in Africa holds a huge potential for youths. So I identify them basically as technology, finance, markets, and regulatory frameworks. So as a young person, let me take Nigeria, for instance, because I believe the majority of the participants here are Nigerian. How do you position yourself between in the midst of technology, finance, markets, and regulatory frameworks? This is what I hope to share in the next few minutes. So now this image I don't like very much because it's mostly an image of male faces. I don't see a lot of female faces, and I was hoping that it was going to be a mix, but this is just a question that, confronts the average Nigerian youth. How do we elevate it? I see the majority of the voices that I see in the climate space apparently happen to be male. And this is not very pleasing, but there is a part for youth to play when it comes to climate governance. And take Nigeria, for instance. I know that the country has announced a net zero target. Africa, I know about Morocco, I know about Egypt, of course, South Africa, because they have carbon taxes. They are industry-wide net zero targets. And the government has committed to net zero. But what's the case in Nigeria? We know that we have organizations like the SDSN who are championing this. To regulatory frameworks, there seems to be an absence of the voices of youths when it comes to climate governance. So the Executive Secretary of the United Nations sets up this forum for youth advisors on climate issues. But I observed that still at COP26 last year, we do not see these youth having these big discussions on the table. And so climate governance is actually one of the key ways that I know that youth can elevate their contribution to climate action. Put youth at the table of such discussions and let them be present in those kinds of committees. What we need is activism for good governance. Although we might not be Greta, might not be achieving what other young people outside of the country, when you take up your billboards, when you take up your placards and you march into the street and campaign for climate action, we might not be able to achieve that, with our own space. But I understand also that grassroots policy making is very critical. Nowadays in Nigeria, we have a lot of young people who work with political office holders as suitcase carriers, personal assistants, and I really look forward to when these kinds of positions would transcend to actual policy making, sitting at the table to influence decisions. So this is a challenge to the Nigerian youth. If you want to elevate your participation and what you achieve in climate action, you need to get involved in climate governance, and that is by finding a seat at the table. If it means joining a political party, join an advocacy group, a pressure group, or whatever, but you need to find a seat at the table and your voice be heard. Technology. Now, I got this starts on countries' use of social media. Social media is a very, very strong tool for climate action. And if youth want to elevate their participation in climate action, of course, we have to discuss social media. So of course, I'm not surprised to see that Nigeria has one of the highest time spent on social media. But what has this translated to? I know we like a lot of entertainment, news, and all of that, but for those of us who are in this conference or are interested in climate action, I wonder how we utilize, how we maximize the opportunity of social media to put out a message on climate change. Now, back to the question about gender. Now, the effects of climate change, they are not gender neutral at all. You know, women and girls are particularly affected. They are more affected by climate change than the male folk. So talk about opportunities for business, talk about education, talk about access to health. Women and girls suffer more than the male gender. But where are their voices? There is still a digital divide in terms of advocacy from women and advocacy from men. And this is another challenge I'm throwing to the youth. If you seek to elevate your participation in climate action, then the women and the girls need to get more involved in technology, use of a mobile phone, reading news on social media, contributing to the discourse. This is one of the ways that we can bridge the divide and we can elevate our participation in climate action. I'm rushing a bit now, but I hope we can get through 6 slides in a few minutes. So entrepreneurship is another, way that we can tackle climate change, and especially for the youth. I know that there are opportunities for partnerships. There are agencies that are putting out funds. For instance, in the commodity sector, we have Nigeria Energy Support Program. They partnered with, I think, GIZ and the European Union. And I know a particular business that benefited from this program. They produce cook stoves, clean energy cook stoves where they use biofuel in LPG cooking systems for women in the northern part of Nigeria. So there are innovations like that can find partnerships, can find funding, can find some level of support. And these are all leading to reduction of the CO2 emissions. I speak about methane as well, and the rate at which food wastes in Nigeria. And I wonder if young people do not find an opportunity in that. Take, for instance, a state like Benue. I have seen landfills filled with mangoes, oranges, fruits, because during this period and all the harvest is done, there is no storage, there's probably no power to freeze if you want to freeze food. So there's a lot of wastage. At the end of the day, this wastage goes into landfill and they turn into gases that are harmful for climate. Have we thought about innovations in that regard? I think a lot of young people would be able to profess solutions to this. And this is your contribution to climate change. Agriculture, of course, has been noted by previous speaker, is one of the really vulnerable sectors to climate change. And we have some programs run by the Africa Development Bank. We have the West African Initiative for Climate Smart Agriculture. There are programs like this that I believe the farmers can take advantage of. But something I also know that hampers the ability to take advantage is technology. Most of the times, farmers, do not take advantage of technology because they do not have the skills and they're not able to access grant opportunities or even, partnerships with bodies that can accelerate climate action in the line of their business. So coming from the private sector now, I want to talk about climate management solutions, and I'm hoping that somebody pays close attention to this. Private sector is able to support young people working towards climate action, and this is one of the ways. If you look at that illustration, I mean, just down here on climate action, you might not see Nigeria or Africa, but I think it's just an indicator that we're not there. We're not there yet. I mean, the statistics have not even captured it. This in itself is an opportunity. For companies like ours that are working on our decarbonization plan, we rely a lot on data. And this data means that we have been recording metrics and indicators before we can begin to forecast and talk about a plan for 2030 or net zero 2050. So these emissions targets rely on data, it relies on science, it relies on a lot of technical know-how. I'd like to challenge young people to get involved in carbon management solutions. Industries such as ours are high resource heavy industries. I've also been in the oil and gas industry, and we need minds like yours that can come up with solutions. Dr. Nihal spoke about some solutions in the building sector, but it might not be at a big industrial sector scope, but you can take one business in the food and beverage industry, for instance, and think about carbon management solutions that you can sell to the industry. On the right, I just showed an infographic of biofuel feedstock that can be used. In Dangote Cement, we use alternative fuel as a way of improving our energy mix and also as a way of reducing CO2 emissions. And biomass is what we see every day in Nigeria. We kick them on the floor. So think about your palm kernel shells, for instance, which after you have cracked it, you've taken the nut, you've taken the oil, and you throw the shell away. That is gold. That is money. Think about rice husks. Think about corn cobs. Corn cobs, they have a high calorific value and they can be combusted. So think about materials that can be combusted that you can save from landfill, and we find value from those materials in industry. So there are lots of circular economy opportunities if we begin to look at waste differently, if we innovate, if we read, if we learn, and just stop getting hooked to social media entertainment. There's a lot more that you can learn from the internet, and you can propose solutions that will benefit industry and will benefit the country and you. Now, young people talk about how to sell climate change. And I agree with one of the speakers. I think the speaker before Alex, was it Prof Popola, that was talking about indigenous knowledge of climate change. When I had my master's degree research in Ogoni land, I remember the village people describing climate change to me in different things, in different ways. They didn't call it climate change, but they called it different things. And so I say to people that culture is very important when you want to sell climate change. You have to convert your business case to indigenous knowledge. So if you want to sell climate change, for instance, to me, someone like me that I am in the private sector, I'd like you to talk about innovation. How are you going to enhance the innovation of my business? So first of all, I'd like you to look at my cement products. So you need to do that research and come to me about how you can innovate something around my product. Okay, and not necessarily try to sell a solution that does not add value to my business. Think about cost saving. When I use alternative fuels, I consume less diesel, I consume less coal, less natural gas, and it saves me cost. You can show me the cost benefit analysis. Brand differentiation, it shows that I'm contributing to the environment as well. My social responsibility and also how I'm contributing to climate change, it makes my brand stand out. Customer engagement, of course, if you have to learn about indigenous knowledge, you also have to engage customers. Long-term thinking, maintaining license to operate employee. These are opportunities for young people to sell climate change to business in a way that business will listen to you. So sometimes I say, don't just come and always sell climate change as charity or make the world a better place. Yes, it is good to make the world a better place, but I will tell you from a private sector point of view that if you want your advocacy to be more effective, make it a business case. And I also gave an example on the right. This is just a case study of how in local communities, you can also establish something like energy communities, set up a cooperative of people who live in an area and probably don't have power, and come up with something like a solar panel, and they can pay through a cooperative system. There are ways to sell climate action in a way that it benefits people and also the environment. So just in a nutshell, these are reasons why young people need to elevate their participation and their advocacy on climate change, because it is skewed to particularly affect young people okay, and old people as well. And then, of course, it's not gender neutral. Women and girls face higher risks, and agricultural systems are more vulnerable to climate change. Of course, there are effects of cognitive and physical development and income potential for the rest of our lives. Finally, it contributes to intergenerational transmission of poverty. And these are reasons that we should invest in climate action. And I'm putting this challenge before young people. I know that you can do it, but this needs to be very strategic. And it's much more than Sorosuke. In Nigeria, that's the local parlance for speak out, you know. So as much as we're speaking out, there are endemic energy problems that need to be solved. And so I would encourage you to be strategic about your climate action. Sorosuke, but add your action to that as well. Thank you.
Dr. Koroba, I don't know if the University of Ibadan would give me the opportunity to recommend you to be an adjunct professor in one of the departments teaching us on climate adaptation. And I'm not saying that in a humorous manner. I mean every sense of what I've said. You've really touched on very crucial and knotty issues. So thank you so very much. We would still have a Q&A, but then let's do that after we have the last but not the least speaker in person of Ambassador Olowoshile. So Ambassador Olowoshile, without further ado, can we have you on board? Just a little bit about you. Is the executive coordinator for, is a chair of Sustainable Green Environment Initiative. He will be speaking to us on elevating youth engagement for sustainable green environment. Please would appreciate if you could do this in 10 minutes or perhaps less. We want to stick to the time that we set for this program. So you have the floor, sir, Ambassador Olowoshile. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Femi, for handing over. Can you hear me?
Very much so, we can hear you.
Fantastic. All right, so good afternoon to everybody on the call. It's a very great privilege for me to be here today. And to all our previous speakers, I want to say a very big thank you for the knowledge you have impacted today. It's been an amazing session all along. I don't have much time, so I'm just going to go straight into the business of the day. And okay, before I go into that, thank you to the organizer of this program. This is actually a very beautiful one. And just like Dr. Okoroba has done justice to this topic I'm about to also reiterate, you know, I'll also be talking on elevating youth for climate action. So as she was wrapping up, I was trying to hide a whole lot of slides because she has dealt on several things that I also have within my slide. So it even make it even a whole lot shorter. So I'm going to be starting with this piece of diagram that I have in the front of my screen here. We can all see this be self-aware, serve others, and reach higher. You know, it's more like you're elevating, you're moving the rank and file of, say, for example, a staircase or maybe a ladder, and that's the word elevating itself. So you are at a certain level, you want to move ahead, a step higher than where you are, then you always continue to move higher. So the first thing you need to do is to be self-aware of what the climate change in itself is all about. And then maybe talk about bringing forward climate actions. And by the time you're trying to do that, if you want to elevate, if you want to move from that level, then you must be thinking, you must be in the mindset of now serving others. And if you want to leave that level as well, you must be thinking of going global. So we'll be seeing that as during the course of the presentation as we go along. So what is climate change? I'm not sure if I want to really dwell on this because we don't have much time. Climate change is just a matter of climate, temperature, rainfall, and blah, blah, blah. You can see a pictorial view here connoting two different types of climates. The first one that you have here shows very green earth, and the other one is showing a very damaged earth. This is the impact of what climate change itself is bringing into our global space. And that is the reason why there's so much noise about climate change. And when we're talking about global warming in itself, it talks about the warming of the Earth's surface. And as young people, what can we do about climate change? There is a lot we can do to protect ourselves and our communities from the change we are facing today. To protect ourselves, we need to protect our life, supporting ecosystem. That's in the like of the land, the plant, and the insects and animals and the likes. We have to protect our water system. That's the river and the groundwater and the likes. We need to protect our cooling system. We're talking about the trees here and every other means. And the last, which is not the least, or let's say the most important, is to protect our people. And this is all encompassing when we're talking about climate change. This is all the cause. This is what the cause is all about. Right. So now we have a challenge. If we have to do all of this protection, the challenge is that we need to define or design a climate action. And in this call, I'm going to be dwelling more on the local climate actions. So now, if you are having, if you are talking about the climate local action, I have brought here 3 focal points that we might be able to dwell on. That actually is more like the 3-legged tool of climate change in itself. We have the climate restoration, the climate mitigation, and climate adaptation. Several of the speakers that have spoken earlier than myself have touched on several of mitigation and adaptation. And there is this gap that is always left open, and that is the lack of the climate restoration. It's also part of climate action. It's also part of what we're looking at in the era of reducing the carbon footprint generally. And in fact, I would say it is one of the germane action that we need to start putting forward, because as we are trying to mitigate the effect, we are trying to adapt to it, we also need to restore what we have damaged, which is very important. And here, I'll just quickly talk about the climate restoration. I have a bit of 4 pictorial view here that will just do the justice. The first one, you can see a bathtub and you can see a head in it. I like this illustration so well because it just gives the touch-on explanation on climate restoration. That bathtub, you see the head in it. The considerable level of carbon dioxide, that blue content inside that bathtub, shows that Earth is fine and in a state of very beautiful state. Everything is fine, everything is doing normal. But in the second picture that you're looking at right here, you see that Earth is already drowning in that bathtub. So now there's a problem. And this is the situation in which we are at the moment. So it is beyond the point of saying we have a level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and we just need to start mitigating and adapting to that. But the level at which we are right now is that the entire atmosphere is already filled with carbon dioxide. And the carbon that we have in the atmosphere is warming the Earth, as I mentioned, the global warming the other time, and this is causing a whole lot of havoc. And it is important that as we are mitigating and adapting to this, we also need to restore our Earth back to its original state. And that is what brought about the lack of climate restoration in itself. And when we look at what happens here in the next picture, the second and the third picture, you see that the faucet is opened. The faucet that is opened is what actually gave room for more of the carbon dioxide to continue to fill the bathtub. So now at the third stage, the faucet is completely open and Earth is drowning, right? So now the climate action that we put forward into climate restoration is that type of action that we have to find a place in this fourth diagram to open up a loop, a hole in the bathtub, so that the carbon dioxide that we already have saturating the Earth itself can begin to drain off, so that Earth can retain its original glory. You know, that's exactly what the entire ideology of carbon and climate restoration is all about. I'm kind of rushing because of my time. I don't want to overshoot my time. And climate mitigation and adaptation, we're talking in terms of action to reduce emission, that's for mitigation. But when you're talking about adaptation, these are action to manage the risk of climate change impact. So when we're talking about mitigation, we're talking in terms of sustainable transportation, trying to find a way to curb the number of emissions that are generated by the moving elements in our environment. We're talking in the like of any means of transportation, both the air, the road, and the rail and likes. They were talking in terms of energy efficiency, putting forward actions within this reach. We're talking about the renewable energy in itself. And then there is this point where mitigation and adaptation also combine. And that's is the one that dwells in the light of education. I think Dr. Okorobas dwelt on some of these things. We talk about the local food system, we talk about water conservation, complete community. That's in the light of sustainable cities and built environment. We're talking about new energy system. We're talking about urban forest. And the adaptation measures, some of them include the flood protection. So you kind of find a way to be able to protect yourself from flood. We kind of find a way or kind of find actions that would actually reduce the disasters that we have, or that will be able to manage it for us. These are adaptation measures, or we have already an existing structure. We want to upgrade it so that it will be able to at least mitigate the effect of climate change. These are some of the actions that we can put forward in that light. Having mentioned that, then it's important that we quickly delve into the climate action that we really are trying to elevate ourselves to be able to take on. So now, I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be talking majorly in the light of local climate action projects. So now, what is a local climate action project? It is a kind of...
Ambassador, I'm sorry, can I crave your indulgence? Could you help us do a wrap up in 1 minute?
Wow, fantastic.
What you're touching on now, we already have it as a question. So I believe you speak to it when
okay, fantastic.
That's
all right.
Then two, just a minute. Then two, this is not the last time we're having you on board. We're having you engage with us over a long period of time. So for that, we just want to kindly crave your indulgence to please help wrap up in about 1 minute. We already have a question that speaks to what you're talking about. So maybe you attend to that at that juncture. Is that fine, please?
That's very fine. That's very fine. No problem. So let me move right into my conclusion. But as I'm moving the slide, we can see some of the thing and just maybe take notes. Yes. As I'm wrapping up, here I have a pictorial view. This is a tree, and that tree, if you look at it typically well, you'll see that this tree houses a whole number of people. You can find up to about 300 people seated under this single tree. And I have just brought this to encourage young people that are right here on this call, that just exactly as you have the value of this one single tree, and I have a note here. The same way one single tree can shelter so many people, so can your one single deed transform many lives. Be intentional with your deed today to positively impact life. So I'm charging every one of us that are on the call. We have a whole lot of actionable work before us. Let us just be intentional about what we do. And the sky is just the starting point for us as we impact so many lives positively. Thank you for listening.
Thank you once again. We're glad to have you on board, and thank you for the insights you shared with us. Just before we move to acknowledge the presence of our co-chair, the co-chair of Sustainable Development Solutions Network Nigeria, that's in person of Professor Mrs. Ngozi Odiaka. Because of network fluctuation, she couldn't join us much earlier via this platform, but she's been with us ever since the network has been quite stable on our side. So she's here with us. We'll move on to the Q&A. You have the floor, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much, Femi. Thank you for the great meeting that we've been having. Really amazing, and I want to thank the facilitators. I'm grateful that it's going to continue, and the charge that has been given to the younger ones, I hope we are going to use it, implementing them, not just for us to have the knowledge. I think the issue is to make a change and to be sure that we are able to contribute our quota to what we have on ground. I really want to thank the chair of the SDSN Nigeria and also the youth leader of the SDSN. It's really a great thing that you have started, and I'm happy that this issue of climate change, mitigation, resilience, everything is on. hopefully before the end of this course or this training, whatever you call it, I'm sure something positive is going to come out from our youths. Not only the youths, even the adults. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Amen. Thank you so much once again. We are really very grateful. So we have questions both for Dr. Just a minute. We have questions for the last three presenters. Yes, we have questions for Dr. Koroba. We have questions for Ambassador Luosile. We have questions for Dr. Nihal Sabag. I think the first question will be for Dr. Sabag, and this is Dr. Nihal, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, excellent, excellent, excellent. So this question is for you, please. It goes first. So it speaks to your advice for those who we can call material scientists. So this is how it goes. He said, which low-cost construction materials would you recommend that material scientists should develop due to its environmental friendliness, its cost effectiveness, and its durability, etc.?
A very deep question, a very generic one as well. I think if we need to research more and try to develop materials, we would work on the most common used materials, which is brickwork. There is a lot of potential with the performance of brickwork on in buildings, concrete as well. So I would say that these two building materials are required to be developed vastly because they are the mostly common used. And I think if we reach an innovation there, it would help us a lot in reducing the emissions and as well as improving the performance of buildings. So there are a lot of innovations in that sense, and it doesn't have to be within the material itself. It could be other layers. So it could be an assembly. It doesn't have to be within the properties of a material. But I think with the material scientists developing that, keeping the sustainable framework in mind, just putting bearing cost in mind, and the financial life cycle of the material and so on. Because I think there are a lot of innovations there that are coming out, but the reason for not spreading out those innovations vastly in the building sector industry could be one of the reasons that is the cost, because by the end of the time, the end users would want to buy the cheapest, or especially in developing countries, especially in countries where not enough legislations are put to the type of construction materials used.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you
for this insight that you shared with us. And this time it's for, I think it's one question, but it speaks to the presentation of both Ambassador Luosile and Dr. Korba. And so this is how it goes. What are some of the low entry points for a critical mass of Nigerian youths to contribute in climate adaptation? I'll take that question again. What are some of the low entry points for Nigerian youths to contribute to climate change adaptation across the country? Let's hear first from Dr. Korba, and then we hear from Dr. Ambassador Luosile.
Right, thanks for that question. So low-hanging fruits for young people,
yes, please,
in Africa will be waste management. Okay, we have a lot of street pickers. We have scavengers who go to landfills and try to get plastics and all, and they recycle that. There's so much innovation that can come out of that. If you can get into that cycle, that value chain, there's a lot of value there, and that is something that you can do. Think about waste management as an opportunity for money making, yes, but also for climate adaptation, because Africa has a waste problem. Nigeria definitely has a waste problem. I know that I stay in Lagos, and I know that Loma has a problem with segregating waste. Sometimes it's waste from the build sector, biomass, all sorts of waste mixed together. Come up with a small enterprise, an idea, and I believe that that will go a long way.
Okay, thank you so very much. So let's hear from Ambassador Losili.
All right, thank you. In full support with what Dr. Kruber said, and just to add one or two to that, another low point could be water management system as well, or water management practices. And also using climate education. That means in the light of using social media advocacy, that is also another way which young people can engage. So if you cannot engage by going through the rigor of doing some of these actionable projects, you can as well be an activist. We use social media a lot, and that was touched on by Dr. Kuroba as well during our presentation. So this is also a tool that we can use to always advocate for climate action. And just like I mentioned, water management practice is also another way.
All right, thank you so much. So someone has asked. Okay.
Sorry, Femi, I wanted to chip in. There's a question in the comments, and I wanted to chip in about ASU strike. So, I mean, if you would let me talk about that, or you have a response.
I was going to read that. Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay, so you were asking, considering the fact youths are so important in issues related to climate change, how do you think ASU strike can help? Yes, ASU strike can definitely help you, because I know that we have a dearth of research on climate action that is Nigeria specific. A lot of the statistics we get from international bodies. And I would tell you that local indigenous Nigeria research on climate action, there is a gap there. So during the ASU strike, if I were a student in these times, during this ASU strike, I would use it to engage in research, and you can find volunteers who help you to regurgitate research topics when we're doing our final year projects, because I know a lot of Nigerian schools do that. You go to the library and you just get a topic, and this is an opportunity to truly decide what research you want to do, how it is relevant to the EU, to the AFDB, there are so many institutions that are actually to policy research. So you can make your university, your dissertation research that businesses would need, government would need. So please use the ASU strike to do some research, and you can begin to publish, because African knowledge on climate change, there's a gap in that sector now. So I encourage you to use the ASU strike as a period to explore all of these topics that are indigenous to Nigeria and to Africa as it comes to climate change.
Okay, thank you once again. Thank you once again, very grateful. I think the last question will be this. How do we, and it's, both of you could also help provide information on that. That's about the last question. How do we encourage afforestation? Of course, we know that will serve as carbon sink when trees are planted, and yet manage the timber economy. So we know that if afforestation is okay, let me not try to answer the question. Let me not try to answer the question. So how do we encourage afforestation without hurting or without harming the timber business or the economy? Was I clear enough, please? Was the question clear enough? Am I audible?
Yes, the question was clear. We're waiting for who you're directing the question to.
I was saying either of you. I was saying either of you could help answer the question. That's what I said. So either you or Sokorba, yes. Okay,
just to say one or two things about that. Afforestation in itself, there has been this saying that says that when you cut down one tree, you plant two others or maybe three others to replace it. So in itself, that is already a mechanism for making sure that whatever it is that you're trying to use the timber for, it's definitely going to be for a good cause. You're trying to fell one. When you're felling that tree, you should have at the back of your mind that you are also replacing with two or three. That in itself, it's a way you can always manage. And you don't even have to wait until the time you have to cut down a tree. And as young people, I think it's one of the things, one of the major advocacy that has gone around the entire world. Plant a tree. Like everybody can do all of that. So you can just, even within your own space, even in your own compound, you can do your due diligence by just try to plant a tree. And it wouldn't cost anything. You can always find trees around. So as a management mechanism, you can, in your own self or by your own self, try to do something. Then also by the word of mouth, tell others, call different individuals around you to come together and then do a plant a tree. We're talking about World Environment Day. That could actually be a project in itself. So you can just go out there and maybe plant a tree. It doesn't even have to require until you are falling a tree before you want to plant one. That's my little question.
Okay, I thought Dr. Okoroba wanted to also touch on the question a little.
This is just an idea about planting trees I think young people can take advantage of. You know, the way we have shows, the way we have events, the way we have campaigns, you know, I think tree planting can be done in that scale, because when we plant 1 tree, 2 trees, the carbon sequestration might not be significant. And I know in Ethiopia, started this kind of campaign about planting trees. Dangote Cement in Ethiopia alone planted 500,000 trees last year. And this year we've set a new target. World Environment Day, in each of our locations, we are targeting at least 200,000 trees. How is that possible? We need people. So this can be a movement of young people. Get a DJ, let him play music while the music is on. We're in an open area with some government officials. You know, we're hyping the people. We can make it fun. We can make tree planting fun. And this is how we will be able to erect different parts of the country rather than working in silos. So I think a lot of collaboration would help in Aforestation if we make this really, really fun and exciting and make it like a event.
All right, at this juncture, I would like to thank every single facilitator of ours, starting from the network chair, Professor Popola, and then our co-chair, Professor Ngozi Odieka, who is still here with us, by the way. Also, the director of the Center for Sustainable Development. We want to thank Mr. Doyin Adeleye, the head of sustainability at the University of Wolverhampton. We want to appreciate Mr. Oluwafemi Abioye, the founder of Tamela Food and Tea, Dr. Aigbe, my good friend, the executive director of African Cleanup Initiative, Dr. Neil Sabak, the founder of Environus, based in Egypt. We also want to thank Dr. Okoroba from Dangote Group, Ambassador Lowo Silif, the chair of Sustainable Green Initiative, and my good friend who could not join us, Olumide Idowu, the executive coordinator of African Youth Initiative for Climate Change. Thank you so much. We want to crave your indulgences, please. This is a program, a long-term program. As we all know, people don't grow in isolation. So I want to plead with you that you stay with us on this journey. So we're trying to develop a strong ecosystem where we have youths contributing significantly. Of course, when youths are doing things, others would also latch on. And by the way, youths includes, I think youths is a broad demography. So from the ages of, say, 15 to 40, that covers youths. And we want to say that even included in these are women, because we don't often talk about women. So women are also appear to be a group that is neglected. And if just these two groups are our focus, youth and women, I tell you, would go a long way in this country and the continent at large, and by implication, the world too. So I would want to plead with you on behalf of the leadership of Sustainable Development Solutions Network Nigeria that in this project that we're embarking on, we can't do it all alone. We're trying to get a lot of youths involved, a lot of women involved, a lot of, how will I call them, rural residents involved in this program, because it appears they've also been neglected. The Sustainable Development Goals is leaving no one behind. So that being said, we believe that when we call on you, despite your tight schedule, you would try to avail us of the resources that you have, not necessarily financial, the expertise you've gained over time, especially. So educational resources, for example, would really do us well. Stuff you could also share in kind with the youth, we would appreciate. So once again, we want to appreciate you for your time. We can't pay you back well enough for the time you've invested with us today. Thank you so much. And before we wrap up, I would like to call on Mr. Emmanuel Olowoyo, He is actually our host today. And because this program is specifically spearheaded by Sustainable Development Solutions Network Nigeria, so he will just do a recap and a wrap up. So I'd like to invite him on board. Please let's make welcome Mr. Emmanuel Loya. You have the floor, Mr. Emmanuel.
Yeah, good afternoon, sirs and ma. Hello, I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you very well, please.
Okay, good afternoon, sirs and ma. Our sincere appreciation to each and everyone and our esteemed facilitators for taking time to join today's event. We really appreciate you, and also to the participants, and our sincere apologies for the time constraints. And I want to emphasize on this again, just like Mr. Femi said earlier, this is just a glimpse of the event, and this is a 12-week accelerator program whereby we'll be training Nigerian youths on sustainable activities around climate and environment. The major purpose for this event is to develop a network of young innovators that are going to pioneer solutions, going beyond discussions, going beyond conferences. And also this event is to commemorate the World Environment Day. And we all know that we only have one Earth, and we have to do everything possible to heal it from harming it. We have to do everything possible to keep it safe. So, like I said, mentioned earlier, this is going to be a 12-week event, and sincerely, I really want to appreciate our facilitator. And to all the participants, I'm going to say this is just an iceberg which you are today. And definitely each facilitator is going to have like 1 and even more than 1 hour to do an advanced training, and also the project, community development project, because on this application, currently we have over 500 youths that have registered as part of this accelerator program, and this spread across the states in Nigeria. And even we have people that are registered outside the country that are joining us on the YouTube platform. So I really want to appreciate, and I also want to appreciate the project team that see to the planning of this event. And I also want to appreciate my Oga, Mr. Femi, who took his time to moderate this event. I know days like this are always engaging moments. And to Professor Pokuola and our co-director, thank you, Ma. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining this event. And to all the applicants, we are going to communicate to you by mail, because there is a limit to the number of applicants we are selecting based on your registration online. I wish each and everyone a blessed weekend. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much once again. Bye, everyone. We are grateful to have had you on board. We are really, really, really very grateful. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks
Bye.
a lot. Bye-bye.